Yun ang eksaktong nararamdaman niya. Mateo had been sitting on his chair for hours staring outside his penthouse window. At 34, na-accomplish niya ang lahat ng goals niya sa buhay. He had his own business, billions in his bank account, all the pretty girls in the neighborhood. Malayo nang narating niya, and yet there was restlessness inside him, a yearning he could not name. Bottom line, he had the world on his palm, and yet he was not happy. Bumukas ang pinto ng kanyang penthouse at pumasok ang isang babae. "There you are!" Anitong nakangiti. Ipinatong nito sa mesa isang bote ng Dom Perignon at 2 wine glass. "Kanina pa kita hinahanap, bigla ka na lamang umalis sa party." It was his 34th birthday. Binigyan siya ng isang surprise party ng kanyang mga kaibigan at ilang business associates. Ginawa iyon sa function hall ng mismong hotel na pag-aari niya. "I brought us this." Binuksan ni niya ang bote ng champagne at nagsalin sa 2 kopita. "I hope you don't mind." Mapang-akit ang ngiti nito nang iabot sa kanyang isang wine glass. They shared a toast at sabay pang sumimsim. Ibinaba ni niya ang hawak sa mesa. Umupo ito sa kandungan niya at pinag-cruise ang 2 hita. Narilis ang laylayan na maikling cocktail dress nito. He put his glass down too. His hand automatically skimmed her smooth flesh. Ninya was his current fling, a beautiful stylist in her late 20s. Nakilala niya ito sa isang social function. She had her eyes on him the moment he entered the room. After a few glasses of martinis and some subtle flirting, he took her to his bed and made her wild fantasies come true. I love it when you touch me like that," she purred. Ilang sandali pa ay tila nasa langit na siya dahil sa ginagawa nito. As confident and as skilled as Nina was pleasuring at him, eventually he knew he would grow tired of her and let her go. Nangangawit na ang panga ni Cassandra sa kangangiti. Ang hirap lang magpakita ng peking tuwa sa harap pa man din ng maraming tao. She'd rather stay inside her room with a good book than mingle with all the poker face socialites. Mabibilang sa daliri ang mga mukhang kilala niya. Curiosity lamang nagtulak sa karamihan ng mga narito para umattend sa engagement party niya. They were just curious kung sinong nakabihag sa mapaglarong puso ni Charles Ocampo. Napapagod na siyang talaga, bukod sa hindi siya komportable sa suot niyang gown at nangangarin na siya sa ikot sa buong function room, naiilang na rin siya sa ingay at tawanan ng mga tao. Ngunit ayaw pa rin bitawan ni Charles ang kanyang kamay, kahit kanina pa siyang bumubulong ditong gusto na niyang magpahinga. "This is our engagement party, Cassandra. Ano lang ang sasabihin ng mga tao kapag umalis ka sa tabi ko? Nasapilitan lang ang kasal na ito, na ayoko naman talagang magpakasal sa'yo dahil hindi kita mahal." It would give her immense pleasure to bloat out those words, pero dahil pangalan ng daddy niyang malalagay sa kahihiyan, she just kept the words to herself. It turned out as a big shock to her nang sabihin nitong malaki ang pagkakautang nito kay Charles, at dahil hindi nito kayang bayaran iyon sa tinakdang palugit, siya na lamang ang hininging kapalit ng binata. Her father reluctantly agreed, at dahil isa rin siyang masunuring anak at gusto niyang tulungan ng ama, hindi na rin siya tumutol sa pakiusap nito. Cliché! At least, I'm worth 20 million pesos. Tuya niya sa sarili. Bumuntong hininga siya ng malalim, bagay na nagpalingon kay Charles. What's wrong? Gusto niya itong angilan. Hindi lang kayabangan ang taglay nitong trait. Numero 1 rin itong manhid at walang konsiderasyon. "I'm really tired, Charles," eksahirado niyang sabi. "Pwede bang umakit na muna ako sa suite para magpahinga? Namamanhid na talaga pa ako." Bahagyang naningkit ang mga mata nito. Hindi nito nagustuhan ang sinabi niya, pero wala na siyang pakialam. She really wanted to get away from the crowd and from him. "Okay, sige, ihahatid na kita." Pinigil niya ito. "No, alam ko naman kung nasa ng suite. Ako na lang." Para hindi na ito magreklamo at magpumilit pa, she tiptoed and gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Hustong nakita niyang tumutok sa kanila ang lens ng isa sa mga kameras na naroon. It was just for the show, na halatang nagustuhan naman ng lalaki. Hindi na ito tumutol nang lumabas siyang mag-isa. Sa elevator, isinandal ni Cassandra ang likod sa metal wall. She felt so lost and so frustrated. It felt difficult to breathe inside a small space. Paglabas niya sa lift, ay mabilis niyang hinanap ang suite nila. Pagliko niya sa pasilyo, ay nakabunggo niya ang isang lalaking kalalabas lamang ng isang kwarto. She barely stared at him and just muttered an apology. Nanginginig ang mga daliring pinadaan niya ang keycard sa electronic lock at mabilis na pumasok. Lingid sa kanya, nilingon pa siya ng lalaking nakabunggo niya. Humihingal na naupo si Cassandra sa ibabaw ng kama. Hindi niya mapigilang umiyak. 2 buwan mula sa gabing iyon, ikakasal na siya sa isang lalaking hindi niya lubusang kilala. Someone she did not even like. When she was younger, she always dreamed of a handsome prince who would come galloping on a white horse to sweep her off her feet, take her to a faraway castle and live happily ever after. Well, there would be no prince for her this time, no castle, and a happy ever after either. Malaki ang pinagkaiba ng fairy tale sa totoong buhay, at wala siya sa loob ng isang fairy tale book. Wiping the tears from her face, she stood up. Naglabas siya ng damit mula sa overnight bag na bitbit niya. She was supposed to spend the night there. Pinareserve iyon ni Charles para sa kanya, pero duda siya kung siya lamang ang matutulog doon. She did not trust her fiancé enough to believe him. Alam niyang may pinaplano ito, lalo at opisyal na ang engagement nila. Ibinaba niyang zipper ng gown at mabilis ang nagpalit. Habang binubutones niyang blouse ay kuminang sa tama ng ilaw ang diamond solitaire engagement ring na kanina lamang ay sinuot sa kanya ni Charles sa harap ng maraming tao. She hated the ring. It was a reminder of the miserable life she was about to have. Hinubad niya iyon at isinilid sa bulsa ng kanyang overnight bag. Matapos masigurong wala nang makakakilala sa ayos niya, maingat siyang lumabas ng silid at sumakay ng elevator. Kinubli niya rin ng bull cap ang kanyang mukha. Paglabas sa lobby ay diretso siya agad sa labas. Sumakay siya sa unang taxi na nakapila at nagpahatid sa bahay nila. Pagdating doon, nagkulong siya sa kwarto at pinilit na makatulog. Alam niyang sa oras na malaman ni Charles na wala siya sa hotel, susugurin siya nito bukas para kumprontahin. Pero bukas niya na lamang poproblemahin iyon. Mag-iipon muna siya ng lakas para sa pagharap nila. Mahihiga na siya nang masulyapan ang larawan ng ina. Wala sa sariling dinampot niya iyon. Bata pa ang mommy niya sa picture. Suot pa nito ang uniforme ng isang flight attendant. Napangiti siya. 10 taon lamang siya nang mamatay ito. But she remembered her mother very well. Sa tuwing uuwi ito galing sa isa sa mga biyahe nito, she would always tell her stories about her travels, of the fascinating countries and places she had been to. Sa 4 na sulok ng kanyang silid, nakita niya ang buong mundo sa mata ng kanyang ina. Ipinangako niya sa sarili na isang araw ay lilibutan din niya ang pinakapaborito nitong lugar sa buong mundo, ang Ireland. Why not? Bigla niyang naisip. Kesa magkulong lamang siya sa loob ng bahay at hintayin ang pagsapit ng kasal niya, magbabiyahe na lamang siya. Pinag-resign na siya ni Charles sa trabaho niya sa kumpanya ng kanyang ama. Wala siyang ibang gagawin. Wala naman sigurong masama kung palalayain niya ang kanyang adventurous idea at side sa una't huling pagkakataon. Excited na tinawagan niya si Wendy, ang best friend niyang hindi rin sang-ayon sa kasalan nila ni Charles. Sinabi niya rito ang kanyang plano. Hindi pa man siya natatapos ay excited na ito sa balak niya. Tutulungan daw siya nito. Nang gabing iyon, nakatulog siyang may ngiti sa mga labi. She could not wait to go to Dublin. Kinabukasan, maaga pa lamang ay narinig na niya ang tinig ni Charles, nakausap ang kanyang ama. Nagsusumbong ito. Segundo lamang ay pinatawag na siya na matanda sa isang katulong. Walang imik siyang sumunod. Cassandra, ano tong sinasabi ni Charles na tumakas ka daw sa engagement party ninyo kagabi? Usisa ni Mr. Franco Hidalgo. She shrugged her shoulders and acted as casual as she could. I was tired. Gusto ko nang matulog. Nagpa-reserve ako ng isang suite para sa'yo. Anang fiancé niya. The bed was uncomfortable. Nagtagi sa mga bagang nito at matalim siyang tinitignan. Ayaw na ayaw ni Charles sa tinatakpan ng kahit sino man ang ego nito. Lalong ayaw nitong nalalamangan ng iba. Cassandra, magiging mag-asawa na kayo. Dapat ay sumusunod ka sa lahat ng gusto ni Charles. You're right, Dad. Magiging mag-asawa pa lang kami. And until then, I'm still a free woman. Inilisan mo na nga ako ng kalayaan sa nalalabing taon ng buhay ko. Pati ba naman ng ilang araw na lalabi bago ang kasal? Aalisin niyo pa rin sa akin? Cassandra? Look, Daddy. Cassandra, I already agreed to this marriage kahit palabag ito sa loob ko. At hindi ko po kayo ipapahiya sa matataas na tao sa lipunan na gusto ninyong paluguran. Bahagyang napayo ko ang kanyang ama sa simpleng sumbat na iyon. Kahit paano nagigilty rin siya. Batid niyang napilitan lamang din ito na ipakasal siya kay Charles. I just want the comfort of my own room. Malaking kasalanan na ba yun? Pwede bang ibigay niyo naman sa akin ang lalabing araw ng pagiging dalaga ko? Please? This is ridiculous! Inis na bulalas si Charles. What? Can't you trust your wife to be? Is it so hard to grant the wish of the woman whom you've professed your love to just the other night? Batid niyang tumagos sa malit na utak ng binata ang mga salita niya. Okay, hindi kita pipigilan hanggat hindi pa tayo kasal. But I am warning you, Cassandra. Kapag may ginawa ka makakasira sa pangalan ko, you and your father will pay for it. Maliwanag ba? Malapad siyang umiti. Her unaffected behavior made him angrier. Pero dahil nakapagbigay na ito ng salita, ay wala rin na rin itong nagawa. Maliwanag pa sa sikat ng araw, darling. The endearment was added as an insult. Lalong nagsalubong ang mga kilay nito. Kasalukuyang binabasa ni Mateo ang isang set ng papeles nang tumawag ang kanyang assistant na si Dave sa kanyang private line. This better be good, Dave. He could imagine his best friend / assistant rolling his eyes. Nasa Spain ito dahil matagal na siyang humihingi ng appointment sa isang hotel owner doon, si Don Joaquin Ignacio. Kailan lamang, in-announce ng hotel magnate na ibebenta na nito ang lumang hotel sa Austria, ang La Precioso 1. Matagal na niyang gustong bilhin ang property na iyon sa Asturias. Bukod sa magandang location at malaki ang potential nito para maging isang world-class establishment, may sentimental value din ang naturang lugar para sa kanya. May good news at bad news ako sa iyo, anang assistant at kaibigan niya. The bad news first. Hindi pumayag si Don Joaquin sa hinihingi mong appointment. Inaasahan na niya iyon. Nakailang tawag at emails na ba siya rito? But the elusive old man had not replied, not even once. Pagod na sinandal niya ang ulo sa upuan. What about the good news? Matamlay na tanong niya. He invited you to stay with him in his farmhouse sa Ireland. Sagot nito. Ireland? Yup. As a matter of fact, pupunta na siya sa Dublin bukas. He scheduled a dinner party at his newly acquired mansion sa... He took down the address he have dictated. Why there? Bakit hindi na lamang sa Spain? Beats me, sagot ni Dave. He smoothed a deep frown with his fingers. Mukhang hindi lang ikaw ang inimbita niya. 2 other prospective buyers were also invited. You better be prepared, Mateo. We don't know what goes on inside that eccentric brain of his. My personal guess, he wants to give some sort of a test. That's absurd, reklamo niya. Anong klaseng test naman ay bibigyan nito sa kanila? Wala tayong magagawa. It's his property. So I have to fly to Dublin and impress him. Right. He took a mental note of his work schedule. Pwede siyang magbakasyon ng hanggang 2 linggo. Hindi na siya pwedeng mawala pa sa opisina ng higit doon. Hindi kasi siya kampante na dine-delegate lamang ng mga tauhan ng trabaho. Looks like I have no choice. I will book a flight to Dublin right away. May iba ka pa bang sasabihin? Tumikim muna si Dave. Boss. Base sa tono nito, nahulaan na niyang nais itong hilingin. The answer is no. I need you here ASAP, Dave. Pero, boss naman. Angal nito. Matagal na itong humihiling ng bakasyon. Pinagbagyan na kitang pumunta ng Spain. Abay, sobra-sobra ng 1 linggong inilagi mo dyan. I came here for business, Mateo. In case you have forgotten. Humalakak siya. Business, my ass? Gaano ba kahirap kausapin ng isang matanda? The other man groaned. Itatanong ko rin yan sa'yo kapag nakaharap mo siya. God, hindi ko alam kung may demensya na matandang yon or he is just plain weird. Catch the first trip home, Dave. That's an order. Kung aalis ako, I need you here at the office. Alam mo ikaw ang second in command ko. Nakatawa pa ring utos niya. Hindi siya natatakot na ma-offend ito. Kilala na siya nitong workaholic at kayang sakyan ni Dave ang ugali niya. I swear, Mateo, one day, you will be the death of me. Tinawanan lang niya ang sinabi ng kaibigan. Pagkatapos niya itong kausapin, tinawagan niya ang suki niyang travel agency. Kaagad siyang nagpabook ng flight patungong Dublin. Cassandra wanted to squeal. Pagpasok pa lamang sa eroplano, gusto na niyang maglundag sa tuwa. I can't believe I'm doing this! Dahil sa tulong ni Wendy, mabilis siya nakakuha ng tourist visa papuntang Ireland. With her flight already scheduled, alibay na lamang ang kailangan niya. At ano pa nga ba ang pinaka-convincing na alibay? Kundi, I'm going out with my friend type. At dahil kilala ng daddy niya si Wendy, hindi man lamang ito naghinala. Ganoon pa man, naging maingat pa rin siya. Wala kasi siyang tiwala kay Charles. Hindi niya mabura sa isip ang munting tinig na nagbubulong na binabantay nito ang bawat kilos niya. Thankfully, nakarating sila ni Wendy sa airport at nakasakay siya ng eroplano nang walang humahabol sa kanya. Nang makita kanyang seat number, kaagad na siyang naupo. By now, alam na ng daddy niya na nawawala siya. Isang sulat ang iniabot niya kay Wendy na ibibigay nito sa kanyang ama oras na nasa ere ng eroplano. Nakasuot doon na magbabakasyon siya ng 2 linggo. Hindi na niya sinabi kung saan. Nangako siyang babalik bago pa ang kasal nila ni Charles. Nakailaw na ang fasten the seatbelt sign. Nagsimula na rin ang in-flight passenger announcements. Ilang sandali pa ay nasa himpapawid na sila. Cassandra settled on her seat comfortably. Patungong Hong Kong ang Philippine Airlines flight na sinakyan niya. May mahigit 1 oras silang stopover doon bago lumulan sa isang British airline flight patungong Heathrow, London. And from there, they would need to transfer to another flight bound for Dublin. Mahigit 20 hours din ang ibabiyahe nila. Pero natitiyak niyang masusulit ang mahabang biyahe pagtapak niya ng Ireland. She intended to make this adventure a memorable one. Ilang minuto pa lamang silang nakakalis ng Hong Kong nang mapansin niya ang isang pasaherong nakaupo sa unahan. Tumayo ito para magpunta sa lavatory. Ang magandang height at ang matikas sa tayo nito ang unang kumuha ng kanyang pansin. Napigil niya ang hininga nang umangat sa mukha nito ang paningin niya. Sandali niya itong pinagmasdan. Ngunit sapat iyon para tumatak sa isip niya ang facial features nito. The long angular face, patrician nose, the proud chin, and the cynical brows. The short side-swept black mane, those perfectly carved strands that would make fingers itch to run through them, added to his smoldering appear. She could not figure out the color of his eyes though, pero sigurado siyang maganda rin ang kulay ng mga iyon, as is with the rest of him. The man was severely handsome in his own way. Napayuko siya nang mapatapat ito sa kanya, but she caught a whiff of expensive masculine cologne. Napansin din niya ang Rolex watch na suot nito, pati na ang gintong singsing na nasa middle finger nito. It wasn't a wedding ring, thank God, but it must have cost a fortune. Kung sa bagay, mukha namang mayaman ang binata, not just rich, but filthy rich. Pasimple niya itong sinundan ng tingin, hanggang sa pumasok ito ng lavatory. Bakit ngayon ko lamang napansin na may artistahing pasahero pala akong kasama? She giggled silently. Makalipas ng ilang minuto, naramdaman niya ang muling paglapit ito. Pero nahiya na siyang tingalain ng binata. 2 linya ng upuan ang layo nito mula sa kanya. Nakaupo rin ito malapit sa pasilyo. Pagtapat ng isang flight attendant ay humingi siya ng tubig. Nagtaka pa siya na makapang sobrang bilis ng pintig ng kanyang puso. At bigla ay tuyong-tuyong lalamunan niya. Attention! All passengers! This is your pilot speaking. Due to the current extreme weather condition, all flights bound for Dublin will be diverted to Cardiff, Wales. What the hell? Hindi napigilan ni Mateo ang mapamura. Kanina pa sila nakakaramdam ng turbulence, but he did not think that it would be worse. Nagsisimula nang magpanik ang ibang pasahero, pero hindi siya. He was more impatient than alarmed, and a bit bored. Bago na tinawag niya ang isang flight attendant. Why can't we land at Dublin? There is a storm, sir. The airport has been closed down and all incoming and outgoing flights were cancelled. Magalang na sagot ng babae. Matapos magpasalamat, ay bagot na sumandal siya at sinarili na lamang ang nararamdamang inis. After the turbulent fight, nakapaglanding sila ng ligtas sa Cardiff, Wales. Nearly chaotic ang atmosphere sa arrival area. Maraming iritadong pasaherong nagtatanong sa mga gate agents. Siya man ay nagtanong din ngunit walang konkretong maisagot sa kanya ang ground stewardess dahil depende raw iyon sa lagay ng panahon. Furious, he walked out of the airport with his baggage. Excuse me? Mahina lamang ang tinig na iyon na galing sa pitit na babaeng lumapit sa kanya. Narinig kitang nagtanong sa gate agent. Pupunta rin kasi ako sa Dublin. Ako nga pala si Cassandra Lorenzo. Inilahad nito ang isang palad para makipagkamay. Tinitigan lamang niya iyon. Wala siyang panahong makipag-chit-chat sa isang babae. Gaano man ito kaganda. Okay, she said with a bit of disappointment. Nanatili ito sa tabi niya. So, any idea on how we can get to Dublin? Muli ay tanong nito nang hindi tumitingin sa kanya. Dahil mainit ang ulo, bigla niya itong hinarap. Look, lady, I don't want to sound rude, pero wala ako sa mood na makipag-usap ngayon. As you can see, I'm pissed. Nakataas ang isang kilay na sumulyap ito sa kanya. Suplado ka pala. Kaswal nitong ganti. Imbes na patulan, nilapitan na lamang niya ang unang cab na huminto sa kanilang harapan. Laking gulat niya nang sumakay doon ang babae. Anong ginagawa mo? This cab is already taken. Nagkibit ito ng balikat, saka matamis siyang initian. Alam ko, wala naman sigurong masama kung makashare ako. Have a heart to your fellow Filipino. Anyway, pwede namang ikaw muna ang unang ihatid ng driver sa pupuntahan mo. She patted the seat beside her. Sakay na. Don't worry, hahatian naman kita sa bayad. Kung umasta ito, parang matagal na silang magkakilala. At unti-unti nang nasasagad ang pasensya niya. Sumakay siya at padabog na isinara ang pinto. Napalingon pa sa kanila ang driver. Is there any problem? The man asked in his Cardiff English accent. No, my boyfriend is naturally grumpy. Just don't mind him. The woman gave the driver a charming smile. The latter smiled back at her and then glared at him. Where is that to, miss? Akmang magsasalita si Mateo, pero inunahan siya ng dalaga. Well, we're trying to get to Dublin, but all flights were cancelled due to the storm. Don't you know, by any chance, of other travel options? Pwede raw silang dalhin ito sa Central Station, kung saan pwede silang sumakay ng train papuntang Holyhead. May ferry service doon patungong Dublin. Ngunit hindi dito sigurado kung may biyaheng ferry sa ganoong panahon. Matataas daw kasi ang alon sa dagat kapag ganoong may bagyo. May kaibigan daw itong may-ari ng isang fishing boat na nakadock sa malapit lamang na pantalan. You can ask him. No. Yes. Nagkasabay pa sila sa pagsagot ng dalaga. Matalim niya itong tinitigan. Are you crazy? Ferry nga hindi nangahas mag-sail sa ganitong panahon. Isang fishing boat pa kaya? Where is your sense of adventure, Prince Charming? Sense of adventure, my ass. Hindi niya isusugal ang buhay niya para lamang makarating sa Dublin. I'm not going. Pinal niyang sabi. Take us to the nearest hotel. Nakita niyang umiling ang driver, pero hindi ito nagsalita. Ilang minuto lamang nang ihinto ang taxi sa tapat ng isang maliit na hotel. Bumaba siya. Bumaba rin ang dalaga. Sumunod ito nang pumasok sa lobby ng hotel. Hindi iyon kalakihan, ni wala nga siyang nakitang porter. I need a room. For you and your wife, sir? Nangunot ang noo ng binata. Nilingon niya ang intian ng babaeng nakatalaga sa front desk. On cue, lumapit si Cassandra at yumakap pa sa isang braso niya. Kahit na bigla, hindi niya magawang tabigin ang kamay nito. Napatitig na lamang siya sa mga mata ng dalaga. Mga matang animoy nakangiti, katulad din ng mapipintog na labi nito. We only have a single standard and a deluxe room available. Anang receptionist na nakatutok sa computer. We will take the deluxe, sabi ni Cassandra bago pa siya makapagsalita. Again, pinagtakahan niya kung bakit hindi niya iyon sinalungad. I need your name, sir. Nakatulala lamang siya. Siniko siya ni Cassandra. Honey, tinatanong ka niya. Pinilig niya ang ulo at saka pa lamang binalingan ng receptionist. What names will I list down, sir? It's Mateo. Mateo Salvador. Mr. and Mrs. Mateo Salvador. Ulit nito habang tinatype ang information sa computer. Will you be staying for just a night? Yes, sagot niya. Matapos mag-encode sa computer, may tinawag ito sa intercom. Lumabas ang isang binatilyo mula sa pintong nasa kaliwa ng reception table. Iniabot ng receptionist ang isang susi dito. Kinuha nito ang maleta ni Cassandra at iginiya sila sa elevator. Bumaba sila sa 3rd floor. Matapos buksan ng binatilyo ang silid na inarkila nila, ay ibinigay na nito kay Mateo ang susi. Inabutan nito ng tip ni Cassandra. Napansin niyang namula mga pisngi ng binatilyo at nahihiya itong napayuko ng ngitian nito ng matamis na dalaga. Ikinandado niya ang pinto pagkalabas ng bellboy. So, Mateo. Hindi pa rin naglalaho ang ngiti nito. Mateo found himself annoyed. Ngayon lamang nagsink in sa utak niya ang ginawa niya kanina sa lobby. Pumayag siyang akalain ng receptionist na mag-asawa sila. Ako nga pala si Cassandra. My friends call me Kaz. Yun na lang din ang tawag mo sa akin. Hindi niya ito pinansin. Instead, he surveyed the whole room. Malaki iyon ngunit hindi kasing laki ng mga deluxe room sa 5-star hotels. Malinis naman ang silid at malaki ang kama. May isang living room set na katapat ng floor-to-ceiling window na natatakpan na makapal na kortina. Sa paanan ng kama ay ang 32-inch wall-mounted flat-screen TV. May isang maliit na pinto sa kanang bahagi ng silid. It was an ensuite bathroom. May shower stall at isang bathtub. Balak mo ba talaga akong hindi pansinin hanggang bukas? Baka mapanisan ka ng laway niyan. Matalim itong tinitigan ni Mateo. And the little vixen still had the guts to smile at him sexily. Napansin na niyang maganda ito kanina, pero noon lamang niya napagtuunan ng pansin ang facial features nito. Parang sa manikang mabilog na mga mata nito, na binagayan pa ng malalantik na pilikmata. Bilugan din ang mukha ng dalaga. Matangos ang malit na ilong, at maumbok ang likas na mamula-mulang labi. She looked familiar, too. Hindi lamang niya matandaan kung saan siya unang nakita. I'm Cassandra. You've introduced yourself for the 3rd time. He heard her soft giggle. So, you are keeping track. Biro nito. Umikot ang eyeballs niya. You should have taken the other room. Why? Mas safe matulog pag may kasama. Besides, inakala ng receptionist na mag-asawa tayo. Hindi mo rin dapat in-encourage ang maling akala niya. Napaka-awkward naman kung itatama ko siya. At saka mukhang manghang-mangha siya sa atin. She must have thought we were a perfect pair. Sa inis ay napailing si Mateo. Ayaw mo palang isipin niya na asawa mo ko. Eh bakit hindi ka umimik kanina? Hindi niya nagawang sagutin ang tanong nito. Ibinaling ng dalaga ang atensyon sa paghalongkat sa dalang maleta. Pero wala siyang duda na lihim siyang pinagtatawanan nito. Hindi ka ba natatakot sa akin? O talagang ugali mo nang makihitch sa sino mang estrangherong matipuhan mo? She eyed him with a pout. That hurts, she snapped. Pero wala naman sa tono nito na saktan ito sa sinabi niya. Cassandra crossed the small distance between them. A whiff of sweet feminine perfume surrounded him. Napaatras siya na isang hakbang. Nakapamewang ito sa harapan niya. Small chin tilted defiantly. Stubborn eyes stared at him with a challenge. If not for the slight curve of her luscious lips, akalain niyang galit ito. For your information, I don't hitch with strangers, mister. Umangat ang isang sulok ng bibig niya. Why should I feel privileged? Sino ka ba? Anak ng presidente? Patuyang tanong ni Mateo. Close enough. Tumalikod ito at binalikan ang ginagawa. Seriously, hindi ka ba natatakot na makasama ang isang estrangherong lalaki sa iisang kwarto? Bakit ako matatakot? Pilipino ka rin. Wala naman sa itsura mo na mananakit ng isang walang labang babae na katulad ko. Besides, you look nice. He made a short, cynical laugh. Serial killers look nice too. Are you a serial killer? Hamon nito. Naiiling na isinilid niya sa loob ng cabinet ang malaking bag na dala matapos maglabas ng ilang gamit. Hindi ko lang maintindihan. Any man will be thrilled to have a woman beside him in bed. Pero hindi yun ang nakikita ko sa'yo. I am not just any man. At hindi naman lahat ng babae pinapatulan ko. I don't crave for that much para sunggaban ng kahit sino na lamang na nakapalda na makasalubong ko. He vented. And it's not like we're here to have that. That's good to hear. My virtue is safe with you. Tamang katob kong mapagkakatiwalaan ka, Prince Charming. And why do you keep calling me that? My name is Mateo. Pigil ni Cassandra ang bumulalas ng tawa dahil sa iritadong tanong ng binata. He might look like a prince but he certainly was not charming. Hindi nga bagay para dito ang taguring iyon. At ito ang lalaking umagaw sa pansin niya noon sa eroplano. Wala lang. Gusto ko lang. Nagsalubong ang makakapal na kilay nito. Ni hindi pa niya ito kinakitaan ng genuine ng ngiti. Permanente na yatang nakakunot ang noon nito. Ako yatang dapat matakot sa'yo. Are you a lunatic or something? Saang asylum ka ba nakatakas? Napatawa siya. Kahit pala ganyan ka kasuplado, may sense of humor ka rin? Nakangiti na muli siyang lumapit dito. Mabagal lang bawat hakbang niya at mapangakit. Nagdiwang ang loob niya na makitang gumalaw ang Adam's apple nito at titig na titig ito sa kanya. Pagtapat sa binata, marahan niyang hinagod ang tingin ng kabuuan nito. I am not a lunatic, Mateo. Bulong nito. She gazed at him. A pair of piercing blue-green eyes stared back with interest. His gaze seemed to penetrate her very soul. Sandali siyang nawala sa sarili. She was only taunting him. She only meant to tease. She tried to keep that in mind. I am just a girl, standing in front of a boy, asking him to... I am not being original. She tiptoed until her lips were at level with his. Inilapit niyang mukha sa mukha nito, so close that his warm breath touched her cheeks. She skimmed her bottom lip with her tongue. Asking me to what? Parang lasing na tanong nito. Otomatikong nagbaba ito ng ulo. Pero bago pa maglapat ang mga labi nila, naitulak na niya palayo ang binata. Asking you to loosen up. You are too serious, too tensed. She giggled. Bumalik siya sa side niya ng kama. Mukha lamang siyang hindi apektado. She had managed to maintain her bubbly tone. Pero ang totoo, nanginginig ang mga kalamnan niya. Mukhang nabigla siya sa ginawa niyang panunukso. Kumilos si Mateo. Nasa tabi na niya ang lalaki sa ilang hakbang lamang. Hinawakan nitong isang braso at hinila siya paharap. Sapat ang higpit ng kamay nito para iparamdam sa kanya na mas malakas ito kaysa kanya. Don't you ever play that trick on me again. Baka sa sunod magsisi ka. I may be a gentleman, but I am not a saint. Pabigla rin siyang binitawan nito. Walang imik itong lumabas ng silid at padabog na hinila pasara ang pinto. Napapiksis siya sa ingay ng nilikani yon. Nakatulala lang na upo si Cassandra sa gilid ng kama. Sa isip ay paulit-ulit niyang pinagalitan ng sarili. Hindi niya talaga dapat ginawa iyon. They barely know each other. Hindi niya alam ang totoong ugali ng binata, maliban sa pinakita nito sa kanya. At hindi naman talaga siya ganoon kapusok. Ni hindi nga siya lumalapit sa mga lalaking hindi niya kilala lalo na makipaglandian sa mga ito. But with Mateo, she had completely forgotten all her morals. She couldn't deny the attraction. Pero hindi sapat yon para kalimutan niya ang sariling moral. Hindi ko na dapat ulitin ang ginawa ko. Paalala niya sa sarili. And she owed Mateo an apology. Nasa labas lamang ng hotel si Mateo. He needed a dose of fresh air to clear his mind and to calm his raging libido. The lunatic woman accomplished what other women failed to do. Arouse him without doing much of anything. Damn! He knew she was only teasing him. At nagagalit siya sa kanyang sarili dahil hindi niya nagawang kontrolin ang reaksyon ng katawan. Hinugot niya mula sa inside pocket ng jacket ang kahan ng sigarilyo, pati na ang lighter. Nagsindi siya ng isang stick. Paminsan-minsan, naninigarilyo siya para mawala ang tensyon sa katawan. Katulad na lamang ngayon, tumingala siya at nagbuga ng usok. He watched as the smoke slowly disappeared. Kung itutuon niya sa ibang bagay ang pansin, baka sakaling makalimutan niya ang dalagang iniwan niya sa kwarto. The same one he would share a bed with tonight. Lihim na naman siyang napamura. How could he sleep beside her and still act indifferent? Pagkatapos itong gisingin ng kamunduhan sa isip niya, naging sunod-sunod ang hitit niya ng sigarilyo. Walang nagawa ang malamig na panahon para pahupain ang init na nararamdaman niya. Ano kaya kung lumapit na lamang siya ng ibang kwarto? May isang standard room pa namang available. Pero alam ng reception, mag-asawa sila ni Cassandra. Pwede niyang itama ang maling akala ng receptionist. Hindi naman malaking problema iyon. He was slightly relieved. Tama, yun na lamang ang gagawin niya. Lilipat siya ng kwarto at pagkatapos, he needed a cold shower, a freezing one. Papasok na siya sa lobby nang makasalubong niya si Cassandra. Alanganin ang ngiti nito. Tungkol kanina, sorry ha? Mahinang sabi nito. Wala itong suot na jacket. The air was not freezing but cold enough. Nayakap nitong sarili nang umihip ang hangin. Pumasok ka na. Maginaw dito. Baka magkasakit ka. Tumango ito. Ikaw, hindi ka pa ba papasok? Itinaas niya nangangalahating stick ng sigarilyo. Uubusin ko lang to. Tipid itong ngumiti at tumalikod na. Cassandra, tawag niya. Lumingon ang babae. Ikaw na lang mag-occupy ng room. Lilipat ako sa ibang kwarto. A flicker of disappointment crossed her eyes, followed by a brief flash of guilt. Hindi ito nagsalita at nauna nang pumasok. Nagpalipas pa siya ng 5 minuto bago pumasok sa lobby. Kinausap niya ang receptionist. What do you mean it has already been taken? Your wife, Miss Lorenzo explained to me that there has been some misunderstanding. Pardon me, sir. I really thought she was your wife. Alanganin itong umiti. You look good together. And well, I just assumed. I'm sorry for embarrassing you both. It's okay. Was she the one who took the standard room? Tumango ito. Nang hingin niya ang room number ni Cassandra, ay hindi ito nagdalawang isip na ibigay iyon sa kanya. Nagpasalamat siya sa babae at umakyat na. Wala na nga ang maleta ni Cassandra sa ibabaw ng kama. Bumaba siya ng second floor at hinanap ang room number nito. Kumatok siya pagtapat sa pinto. Anong ginagawa mo dito? Tanong kaagad niya sa nagulat na dalaga. Nakakahiya namang ikaw pa matulog dito, samantalang ako may kasalanan. Doon ka na lang sa itaas, mas magiging komportable ka doon. Wala sa tono nito na nagpapaawa. Dapat ay mapalagay na si Mateo dahil ang babae na ang kusang lumalayo. Oddly, siya naman itong hindi makatiis na hindi lumapit. Lumabas ang dalaga na may suot ng jacket. Saan ka pupunta? May sasabihin ka pa ba? Nagugutom na kasi ako eh. Bala kong kumain doon sa restaurant na tinuro ni Mauve, yung receptionist. Dugtong nito na makita ang pagtatanong sa kanyang mga mata. You're going out alone? Malakas ang hangin at umaambon sa labas. Plus, mag-aalas 9 na ng gabi. Malapit lang naman yung restaurant dito at saka tinuro ni Mauve kung paano pumunta doon. Maaga pa ang alas 9 para sa mga tao dito. Kahit pa, babae si Cassandra at maganda. Bukod pa sa ibang lahi ito. Baka mapagtripan ito ng kung sinong tao. Sige, bababa muna ako. Kita na lang tayo bukas bago ka umalis. Nilagpasan siya ng dalaga. Hindi rin siya nakatiis. Sinundan niya ito. Nagulat pa ito nang hawakan niya ang isang kamay nito. Sasama ako. Nagugutom na rin ako. Simpleng sabi ni Mateo. Nangunot ang noon ng receptionist na makita silang magka-holding hands sa lumabas ng elevator. Hello, this is Mateo Salvador. I would like to speak to Don Joaquin Ignacio, please. Hold on a minute, sir. Mateo waited patiently as the operator connected him to Don Joaquin. Nakarinig siya ng click. Pagkuha ng isang tinig lalaki ang nagsalita. It sounded younger. Inulit niya ang sinabi sa operator. Pinaghintay uli siya bago niya narinig ang boses ng matanda. Don Joaquin? Yes, speaking. Anito sa tipikal na Spanish accent. And you are Mateo Salvador? Yes, I called regarding your invitation. Sir. Si, I hope you can come, Mr. Salvador. I will. Actually, I'm here in Caldifuales. Our flight to Dublin got diverted because of the storm. I am not sure if I can catch a ferry at Holyhead today, but I will try. I might be late, so if it's not an inconvenience, please wait for me. Por supuesto. Of course, we will wait for you. Will Friday be convenient for you? Martes lamang noon. Siguro naman nasa Dublin na siya bago mag-Biyernes. He said yes. Then Friday it is. I trust that Mrs. Salvador will accompany you on your trip. Mrs. Salvador? You have a wife, don't you? Pakiramdam ni Mateo ay pinagpapawisan siya nang malapot dahil sa tanong na iyon. Ang alam ng matanda ay may asawa siya? Hindi niya alam kung saan galing ang maling akalang iyon. Hindi rin alam kung anong pwedeng maging epekto sa desisyon nito kapag sinabi niyang wala. Cassandra chose that moment to knock on his door. Nang sumungaw ang ulo nito sa pinto, nagkaroon siya ng ideya. If having a wife would give him an edge, or give him an advantage or equal footing with the other prospective buyers, then there was no harm in pretending. Hindi naman mukhang mahirap kumbinsin si Cassandra sa naisip niya. Yes, my wife will be coming with me. I hope it won't be a problem. She could be a handful sometimes. A spirited woman. I can't wait to meet her. Ang interesadong tono nito ang nagbigay sa kanya ng pag-asa. Naalala niyang sinabi ni Dave that the invitation could be a test kung sino sa mga prospective buyers ang karapat-dapat itong pagbigyan. Nagpaalam na siya sa matanda dahil naghihintay na rin sa kanya si Cassandra. You have a wife? Tanong kaagad nito. Napangiti siya. Yes, if you will agree to my proposition. Namimilog ang mga matang itinuro nito ang sarili. You want to marry me? For real? His laughter echoed inside the room. Tumayo siya at hinila ito paupo sa gilid ng kama. Hindi for real, and there won't even be a wedding. Ganito kasi yun. Dinitalya rito ang tungkol kay Don Joaquin Ignacio at ang dahilan kung bakit siya papuntang Dublin. Ang alam niya may asawa na ako. I don't know if it was my assassin's fault or he just assumed that I'm married. Well, siguro nag-assume lang siya. You're past the marrying age. You have a stable income. Wala nang dapat pumigil sa'yo para bumuo ng isang pamilya. May point ang dalaga. So ang gusto mo, sumama ako sa'yo at magpanggap ng asawa mo para sa'yo bigay ni Don Joaquin ng hotel. Bilang kapalit, sasagutin mo lahat ng magagastos ko sa bakasyon ko dito. Ganun na nga. Mga isang linggo lang naman. At saka balak mo ding maglibot sa Ireland, hindi ba? Tumango ito. Kapag pumayag ako, does it mean that I have to be extra sweet with you? Then I have to let you hug and kiss me? Kapag may audience lang, I won't take advantage kung tayo lang dalawa. At dun sa pagiging sweet, I don't think it will be a problem. You are naturally charming. Tumitig ito sa kanya. Pagkatapos, itinuon ang mga mata sa sahig at nag-isip. Look, once I get at the hotel, I promise you will be properly compensated pagbalik natin sa Pilipinas. Bukod pa yun sa sinabi kong sasagutin ko ang lahat ng magiging gastos mo sa Ireland. Kunot ang noong. Muli itong tumitig sa kanya. Natoon ang pansin niya sa mapipintog nitong labi. He would have no problem kissing her. He had been dying to since last night. Okay, sige, payag ako. Ang lapad ng naging ngiti niya. Siya ang nagbayad para sa 2 kwarto. Panay ang titig sa kanila ni Mauve. Nagtataka marahil sa inaakto nila. Matapos kasing sabihin ni Cassandra na hindi sila mag-asawa at ang matulog ito sa ibang kwarto, heto't kasama pa rin niya ito at nakahawak pa sa isa niyang braso. Hindi na lamang nila pinansin ang babae. Kanina, matapos niyang mapapayag si Cassandra sa kanyang proposition, ay nagpabook na kagad siya sa Stena Line sa Holyhead. Fortunately, magre-resume na ang ferry service mamayang 1:30 ng hapon. Pero dahil mahigit 4 na oras pang biyahe mula Cardiff hanggang Holyhead, yung schedule 8:30 ng gabi na lamang kinuha niya. Mahaba pa ang oras nila. Paglabas ng hotel, umarikila sila ng isang taxi na maghahatid sa kanila sa Cardiff Central Station. Bumili siya ng 2 first class ticket at nagtungo sa platform 2 kung saan naroon ang train na patungong Holyhead. Pagdating sa Holyhead Port, dinala muna siya ni Cassandra sa coffee shop na sa mismong loob ng port. They still had 2 hours to spare bago umalis ang ferry nila. San ka ba sa Dublin tayo pupunta? Sa Carrick Pines, makalahating oras din ang biyahe yun, by car mula sa Dublin Port. At naroon si Don Joaquin? Yes, sa pagkakasabi ng assistant ko, he bought a terrace house there. Napasipol ang dalaga. He must be filthy rich. He is. Huminto ito sa kanya. Parang ikaw. Napahalakak si Mateo. Wala pa sila sa Dublin, pero inuumpisa na itong maging sweet sa kanya. Honestly, he did not mind kung paanong parang natural na nitong maglambing sa kanya. Pakiramdam niya, natural na rin sa kanyang natumugon sa paglalambing nito. What makes you say that I'm rich? Imagine, pumunta ka dito para bumili ng isang hotel. Tapos sinagot mong lahat ng gastos ko dito. At bibigyan mo pa ako ng regalo pag uwi natin sa Pilipinas kapag sa'yo binigay ni Don Joaquin ang property. Hindi kayang gawin niya ng isang simpleng tourist lang. I get your point, and to be honest, I am an affluent businessman. How affluent? Kasama ka ba sa list ng Philippines richest? Kabilang ang binata sa Asia's richest people, pero hindi na niya sinabi iyon sa kausap. Hindi niya ugaling ipagyabang ang pagiging mayaman niya. Ayaw mong sumagot ha? Siguro nga kasama ka sa listahan yun. She wrinkled her nose and took a sip of her coffee. Inobserbahan niya kung nadagdagan ng interes nito sa kanya. Pero wala namang nagbago, ni hindi ito nangulit ng tungkol sa mga negosyo niya. She did not seem to care much kung gaano kalaki ang bank account niya. Didiretso na ba tayo kay Don Joaquin pagdating natin sa Dublin? Mahigit 3 oras pa rin silang tatawid sa Irish Sea pasado alas 11 ng gabi na silang makakarating sa Dublin. He gave me until Friday. Pwede namang bukas na tayo magpunta sa Carrick Mines. Besides, alam ko naman na pagod ka sa maghapong biyahe. I'm tired, yes. Pero nag-enjoy naman ako sa mga dinaanan ko. And I can't wait to step on Irish soil. Excited itong sabi. She looked like a child waiting for her very first Christmas gift. Napaka-unassuming nito. And her childlike behavior felt like a refreshing breeze on her tired soul. Napangiti siya. He was starting to like Cassandra. A lot. Why do you want to tour to Ireland? At bakit mag-isa ka lang? Sandaling lumungkot ang mga mata nito. Ireland was my mother's favorite destination. Isa siyang flight attendant sa isang European airline. Kung nagbabakasyon siya, she would tell me stories of the places she would been to. Kung alin ang masarap puntahan, kung anong hindi. Nalibot na niya ang buong Europe, pero wala daw tatalo sa ganda ng Ireland. We were supposed to go there on a family vacation, pero hindi na natuloy. What happened? My mom got killed. Pauwi na sila ng Pilipinas. Namimili siya ng pasalubong para sa amin ni Daddy. May 2 hold-upper na pumasok ng souvenir shop na pinuntahan niya. She got killed in a crossfire. I was only 10 then. Mateo could feel the pain in her voice. His heart ached for her too. Hinawakan niya isang kamay nito at masuyong pinisil. I'm sorry, he whispered. Cassandra looked up and smiled at him. Sabi ko na nga ba at may soft side ka rin. Natatawang umiling na lamang siya. Isang oras pa silang tumigil sa coffee shop. Nang sa wakas ay tinawag na sila para sa boarding. Sa buong biyahe ay hindi pumasok sa cabin nila si Cassandra. Nasa labas ito at pinapanood ang naglalakihang alon sa Irish Sea. Medyo humupa na ang sama ng panahon. Pero hindi pa rin ganoon kapayapa ang dagat. Do you want to take a nap? Mamaya pa tayo dadaong sa port. I don't want to miss a thing, Mateo. Natatawang nilibot niya ang paningin. Wala ka namang makikita sa paligid kundi tubig. Ano ka ba? Nasa na ba ang imagination mo? She cast a dreamy glance on the vast waters. Imagine all those early settlers. They must have crossed the same sea. They must have felt the same way I feel now. Jubilant and hopeful. Tumingin ito sa kanya. Did you know that Vikings looted the island in the early days? Umiling siya. They did, and Ireland must have captivated them, so they decided to establish settlement along the Irish coast, at isa na roon ang Dublin. Hindi ko alam na nag-aral ka pala ng Irish history. She giggled. Alam mo, pakiramdam ko ngayon isa akong Viking princess, at sa isang longship itong sinasakyan natin. And we went to sail to plunder and conquer the first land we sight upon, with only the stars and the moon guiding our journey. May kalokohang pumasok sa utak niya. I hate to disappoint you, Viking princess, but this longship has a navigation system, and we are not exactly conquering Dublin. Tinapunan siya nito ng isang matalim na sulyap. Alam mo, panira ka talaga ng trip. Pumasok ka na nga lang sa cabin. Natatawang niyakap niya ito sa bewang. Hinila niya pasandal sa kanyang dibdib ang katawan nito. I was only teasing you. Napakalawak naman kasi ng imagination mo. He rested his chin on her head. She felt so soft and cuddly and her fresh feminine scent possessed him. Humigpit ang pagkakayakap niya sa dalaga. He felt her pang lalo tense pero kalaunan ay nag-relax din. Ni minsan, hindi ka ba naglaro ng make-believe nung bata ka? I did, pero matanda na ako ngayon para sa ganong laro. Besides, sa estado ko, I can't afford to make pit stops to Dreamland. Malaki mawawala sa akin kapag nagpabaya ako. Cassandra turned and faced him. And your wealth is more important to you than to set that kid who is hiding inside there somewhere free. No wonder you're so uptight. Tinapik pa nito ang dibdib niya. It's not only about the money, Cassandra. Tinaasan niya ito ng isang kilay. I have worked hard to build all that I have now. Maraming taong umaasa sa akin. I have their whole future on the palm of my hands. Kapag nagpabaya ako, hindi lang ako babagsak. And so the cycle goes on and on. People working their lives off, achieving goals and making a fortune. Kapag na-achieve na yung goal, may kasunod na naman. It's a tiring cycle and a boring one. When do you get to enjoy life? Kapag uugod-ugod ka na at hindi mo na magawang lakarin kahit hanggang sa susunod na kanto? Tell me, Mateo, kailan magiging sapat ang sapat na? He sneered. Are we having an argument here? Not an argument. I'm just stating my opinion. Hindi ko lang kasi maintindihan kung bakit mas pinipili nating mag-exist lang kaysa mabuhay. If you exist, then it means that you're alive. Wala namang pinagkaiba. Malaki ang kaibahan, Mateo. People who only exist to breathe, walk and talk like normal human beings. But inside, they have this enormous void that they don't know how to fill up. Sa bawat araw, nagigising sila. They work to achieve what they feel would make them happy. Pero kahit nasa mga kamay na nilang bagay na hinahangad nila, at the end of the day, may kulang pa rin. And so they waste their whole life searching for that one elusive thing that will make them complete. Ang problema lang, they don't know what it is. And you think, isa ako dun sa mga taong hindi nakakakilala at naka-experience ng tunay na happiness? I believe you did, Mateo. Something just happened in between that. You made me forget. But there is still hope for you. This ridiculous adventure might serve you as your wake-up call. She glanced back at the open sea. Napapantastikohang tinitingnan lang na dalandaga. Maybe she was right. Maybe it would do him good if he would set the inner kid free. You want us to what? Gulat at tanong ni Mateo. Nasa isang terrace table sila sa The Bay restaurant sa Clontarf. He was enjoying his plate of wild mushroom and strip of filet beef risotto and a glass of Chardonnay while admiring the spectacular view of Dublin Bay when Cassandra voiced out something that completely stunned him. She took a spoonful of her chicken Florentine. Ang sabi ko, wouldn't it be nice kung ikakasal tayo? She said casually. Past 11 na ng gabi na makadaong ang ferry sa Dublin Port. Pagod na si Cassandra at gusto na lamang nito mag-check-in sa pinakamalapit na bed and breakfast inn. Earlier this morning, nakiusap ito sa kanya na mamasyal muna sila sa Dublin bago puntahan si Don Joaquin. Total ay may 2 araw pa bago ang Biyernes. Hindi naman daw makakasama na impression niya kung gugukurin nila ang buong isang araw sa paglilibot. Kahit tutol siya, pinili na lamang niyang pagbigyan ng dalaga. Is this still part of your make-believe fantasy? Yes, diretsong amin ito. Naisip ko lang, since we are about to act as a loving couple, bakit di natin gawing official ang pagpapanggap natin? Let's have a pretend wedding sa St. Patrick's Cathedral. I've always wanted to have my wedding there. Skeptical na rin siya, kahit sinabi na nitong kunwaring kasal lamang ang magaganap sa kanila. Napansin ni Cassandra ang agam-agam sa mukha niya. Nagtanong ito, don't you want to know what it feels like to be wed? Marriage is a serious business for me. It's not something I jump into on impulse. Kunwari nga lang, walang priest, walang witnesses, just us saying our vows. Natatawang umiling siya. Bakit kailangan pang may ganun? Hindi naman pala totoo. Your idea is just ridiculous, Cassandra. Mateo noticed the shadow of disappointment crossed her face. With passionate eyes, she stared into him firmly. What if I tell you that this will be my only chance to be married? Papayag ka na ba sa gusto ko? This will be my only chance to be married to someone I genuinely like. Yun ang eksaktong nasa isip ni Cassandra. Kahit kunwaring kasal lang, it would mean so much to her. May nararamdaman siya para kay Mateo. Marahil na unti-unti nang umuusbong ang pagkakagusto niya rito. At gusto niyang lubusin ng ilang araw na magkakasama sila. Gusto niyang buuin ang kanyang fairy tale fantasy. At least, kahit sa ilusyon lang, ikasal siya sa kanyang Prince Charming. Hindi ka na pwedeng magpakasal? Bakit? Balak mo bang magmadre pag uwi ng Pilipinas? Tudyo ng binata. Halatang hindi siya nito sineseryoso. She felt the stab of rejection sting her insides. Malungkot siyang napangiti. Siguro nga masyadong katawa-tawa ang idea niya. Huminga siya ng malalim at pinakawala ng isang buntong hininga. Kung ayaw mo, wag na nga lang. Kalimutan mo na mga sinabi ko. Ani ang nakatingin sa kahabaan ng Dublin Bay. Mataas ang tubig dala marahil ng bagyo. Sumisingit na sa mga kapal na ulap ang sikat ng araw. The pavement was blotched with an occasional drizzle, and the air was still cool to the skin, but the storm was over. Pero kung payag ka naman, we have to buy a wedding ring. Hindi maniniwala si Don Joaquin na mag-asawa tayo kung wala tayong wedding ring. Casual niyang sabi. Hindi lamang niya alam kung nahalata nitong nawala siya sa mood. Don't worry, I'll take you shopping after we eat. He grinned. Wala nga itong ideya sa kung anong eksaktong nararamdaman niya. Despite her earlier frustration, she found herself smiling goofily. Pagkatapos ng kanilang brunch, ay nagtungo sila sa bus stop sa Doyle's Lane. Nakadalawang transfer sila ng bus hanggang sa makarating sila sa Suffolk Street. Mula roon, 5 minuto rin nilang nilakad hanggang sa Trinity Lodge Hotel sa Frederick Street South. Kumuha ng isang silid para sa kanila si Mateo. Ipinasok lamang nila ang kanilang mga gamit bago muling lumabas para mamasyal. 5 minutong lakad at narating nila ang Grafton Street, isa sa mga sikat na shopping destination sa Dublin. Sa magkabilang gilid ng daan, naghana yung iba't ibang boutiques at tindahan. Parang walang nagdaang bagyo dahil nagkalat ng mga tao sa kalsada. Hindi alam ng dalaga kung saan itutuon ang pansin. She could not focus on a particular spot. Hindi lamang mga stores ang kumuha ng kanyang pansin, kundi maging mga street musicians na nagpa-perform sa gilid ng kalye. Kung hindi lamang siya hawak ni Mateo, baka kanina pa siya sumubsob sa nilalakaran niya, ni hindi niya tinitingnan kung saan sila patungo. Hinila nito ang kamay niya nang mapatapat sila sa Fields, isang jewelry store. Isang simpleng gold band ang pinili nila, but Mateo opted to buy the most expensive wedding ring on their collections. Namimilog ang mga matang tumitig siya sa binata, sanhi ng pagkabigla. He just grinned lazily and winked. Sunod naman silang pumasok sa isang tindahan ng damit. Dahil puro casual clothes lamang ang dala niya, he bought a pair of elegant evening dresses na maaari niyang magamit sakali mang kailanganin. He also bought her a pair of open-toe, high-heel sandals to go with the dresses. Bumili din ito ng isang suit at ternong sapatos para sa sarili. Marami pa silang pinuntahan na boutique. Galante si Mateo. Ito ang nagbabayad ng lahat na magugustuhan niyang bilhin. Wala tong pakialam sa presyo. Halos manlaki ang mga mata niya nang kwentan si isip kung magkano nang nailabas itong pera para sa kanya. Saan mo pa gustong pumunta? Ha? Wala sa sariling tiningala niya ito. Namula ang kanyang mukha nang kumunot ang noon nito. What's wrong, Cassandra? Hindi mo ba nagustuhan ng mga binili mo? No, I mean, of course, nagustuhan ko. Kaya lang masyado ng malaki nagagastos mo sa akin. Natatawang hinaplos ito ang pisngi niya. Bukod sa paghawak sa kamay niya, it was the most intimate gesture he made. Hindi ba't yun ang usapan natin? Nasagot ko ang lahat ng gastos mo habang kasama kita? Paalala ni Mateo. Oo nga pala. Sandali niyang nakalimutan ang totoong dahilan kung bakit sila magkasama. Don't worry, love. I can afford it. Walang halong yabang na sabi nito. Naisip niya kung aware ba itong gumamit ng mga endearment sa kanya. Baka nadadala na rin ito. O kaya, pwede rin pinapractice lamang ito ang magiging drama nila kapag humarap na sila kay Don Joaquin. She wished it was the former. Ibaba muna natin ang mga ito sa hotel. Sumulyap ito sa relo. Mag-aalas 3 na ng hapon. Bit-bit ang mga pinamili nila, bumalik sila sa hotel. They had snack at bite before proceeding to St. Stephen's Green. On their way to the park, they passed by St. Anne's Church. At muli, naalala ng dalaga ang gusto niyang kasal sa St. Patrick's Cathedral. Hindi nakaligtas kay Mateo ang yearning sa mga mata ni Cassandra habang nakatitig sa exterior na matandang simbahan. Hindi niya maintindihan kung bakit gusto nitong magpakasal sila kahit di naman totoo ang magiging seremonya. Kanina, seryoso ito habang kinukumbinsi siya. Para bang may malalim na dahilan maliban sa make-believe fantasy nito? He could not figure her out. Maganda ang dalaga. Malakas ang sex appeal nito. Isama pa ang kaya-ayang personality nito. Imposibleng wala itong mga suitors. Kaya nga hindi siya makapaniwala nang sabihin nitong iyon lamang ang tsansa nitong maikasal. Hindi naman ito nagpapaliwanag ng tungkol doon. Naisip niyang masyadong sensitibo ang bagay na iyon, kaya hindi na rin siya nagtanong pa. Hindi niya maunawaan, ngunit bigla ay lumutang na imahe ng isang babae sa kanyang isip. Back in Manila, sa hallway ng isang hotel, nagkabungguan sila. Namilog ang kanyang mga mata. Si Cassandra ang babaeng iyon. Kaya pala pakiramdam niya ay pamilyar ito. Wala sa sariling napangiti siya. Nang maglakad ito ay sumabay na rin siya, still contemplating on the pretend wedding issue. Napasulyap siya sa babae nang humawak ito sa isang kamay niya. Gaya ng dati, nakatingin ito sa paligid. Her eyes were always full of wonder. She was taking everything in, relishing each step, smiling at every delightful spot. Si Cassandra ang klase ng taong hindi maiinip sa traffic sa EDSA. She would be counting cars, guessing about the models, probably creating a backstory for whoever the owner was. She would be happy admiring the trees and the flowers while stuck on a detour. When everyone else was struggling to enjoy life, she enjoyed it. She noticed simple, little things that matter. Isang novelty na sa panahon ngayon ang mga kataong tulad nito. He glanced once more at the woman beside him, totally caught up in a daydream. His heart fluttered with pride. It was pure luck that he had met her, or maybe she was destined to teach him something. That moment, he realized that it would not harm him if he gave into her fantasies. Walang mawawala sa kanya kung pakakasalan niya ito. Lihim siyang napangiti. He could not wait to see the look of surprise in her face the moment he made her dreams come true. Bukas, bago sila pumunta sa Carrick Mines, pakakasalan niya ito sa St. Patrick's Cathedral, gaya ng gusto nito. His pulse quickened at the thought. Wala sa sariling napailing siya. The pre-wedding jitters felt real. So was his excitement. "Oh God, Mateo! This place is beautiful!" Cassandra exclaimed. Sa pag-iisip niya, hindi niya napansing nakapasok na sila sa Fusilier Arc at binabaybay na ang cemented path patawid sa Oak Colonel Bridge. Mamasa-masa ang damuhan dahil sa nakalipas na bagyo. Nakadagdag sa lamig ng hangin ng mga punong nakahanay sa dinaraanan nila. Inakbayan niya ang kasama at kinabig. Niyakap naman ito ang dalawang braso sa bewang niya. Her height, her build, her softness, they were just perfect for him. For the first time in his adult life, nakaramdam siya ng contentment. He could walk around this park all day with her by his side, and he would not grow tired or bored. Wala sa loob na dinampian niya ng halik ang noon ng dalaga. Napatingala ito sa kanya. Sandali silang huminto sa gitna ng tulay, staring at each other. The soft cool breeze, the occasional flutter of duck wings on the tranquil lake waters, and the chatter of birds on the tree branches. The quiet comfort, the pure magic of the place made it unbearable for him not to kiss her. Napasulyap siya sa nakaawang na bibig ng dalaga. She was breathing raggedly at hindi yun dahil sa mahabang distansyang nilakad nila. "If you want to kiss me?" Hindi na ito natapos ang sasabihin. His lips silenced her, and Mateo could not believe the intense desire that shook him the moment he tasted her plump lips. It was unbelievable, considering his broad sexual experiences with the opposite sex. No one had aroused him as powerful as Cassandra had. Thirsting for her sweetness, he grasped her head and kissed her as deeply as he could. "Mateo, anong ginagawa natin dito?" Nasa bungad sila ng St. Patrick's Cathedral. She tried to be distant with him pagkatapos na nangyari sa kanila nang nagdaang hapon sa park. But Mateo refused to let her out of his sight. At dahil sa isang kwarto lang naman sila tumutuloy, hindi niya ito magawang iwasan. Cassandra needed time to analyze her feelings. His kiss scrambled all her emotions. She was confused, scared, and at the same time, thrilled. She had never allowed a man to kiss her the way he did. Hindi lang niya ito pinayagan. She wantonly responded to that every passionate kiss. She was already falling for Mateo, at iilang araw pa lamang sila magkakilala. "You said you wanted us to get married here." Nasa loob na sila ng cathedral. Cassandra looked around her, amazed by the magnificent architecture of the old church. The tall, wide pillars, the archways, the stained glass windows depicting the life of St. Patrick. The cathedral creates a tranquil, almost divine environment. "Mateo, hindi na kailangan gawin to." His brows drew closer. "Why the sudden change of heart? Natatakot ka ba?" Saan naman siya matatakot? It was going to be a pretend wedding only. Isang katuwaan lang. But yes, natatakot siya. Her fairy tale fantasy was going too far. Gusto niya si Mateo at hindi malabong totohanin niya ang drama. Ngayon pa nga lang, pakiramdam niya ay totoong asawa na niya ito. Especially with that kiss they shared. She shook her head in frustration. Hindi na niya dapat sinabi pa sa lalaki ang mga secret yearnings niya. You are the one who convinced me to play make-believe. Ayoko lang kasing pilitin ka. He smiled. It took just a lazy curve of his lips to melt the indecision in her heart. Sino naman na nagsabing napipilitan lamang ako? You were right. I have to set the kid in me free. And honestly, I do want to feel what it's like to be married to someone like you. Someone like her. Anong ibig nitong sabihin? Ano ba ang isang katulad niya? Someone who could amuse him? Someone he could learn to like and possibly love? Again, she shook her head. He could not possibly be falling for her. Come on, let's do this. Wala na siyang nagawa nang hilahin siya ng binata palapit sa main altar. Her nervousness doubled. Nanginginig ang mga tuhod niya. Walang ibang tao sa loob ng katedral maliban sa kanila. Mateo reached for the inside of his jacket. Nilabas ito ang kahita ng wedding ring na binili nila sa Fields. The memory of how expensive it was brought a sense of honor in her. Pipilhin din kaya nito ang ganoon kamahal na wedding ring kung ibang babae ang kasama nito ngayon? Maybe, she was just being arrogant, pero may pakiramdam siyang hindi. Ay, Mateo Salvador. Panimulan nito habang kinukuha ang isang singsing. Take thee, Cassandra Lorenzo, as my lawful wife. He took her hand and slipped the ring on her finger. To love, respect, and honor. To have and to hold. From this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. With fingers trembling, she took the other ring in his right hand. Tumik him siya para alisin ang bara sa kanyang lalamunan. I, Cassandra Lorenzo, take thee, Mateo Salvador, as my lawful husband, she said as she stared at a pair of blue-green eyes, so intense it almost took her breath away. To love, respect, and honor, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Their vows not only sounded real, it felt real, poignant. The tender kiss that followed sealed her fate. She was indeed already in love with this handsome man. At kahit isang pagkukunwari lamang ang naganap, kahit pa nakatakda sila maghiwalay makalipas ang ilang araw, at kahit naghuhumiyaw ang katotohanang ikakasal siya sa ibang lalaki, in her heart and mind, she would forever be Mateo's wife. Su esposa es muy hermosa. Nakangiting bati ni Don Joaquin Ignacio na makarating sila sa terrace house ito sa Carrick Mines. Mateo glanced at her and grinned. Indeed she is. Cassandra blushed. Kahit paano nakakaintindi siya ng Spanish. Multilingual ang mommy niya at tinuruan siya nito ng mga lengguaheng alam nito. I'm really glad you were able to come, Mateo. I wouldn't miss it for the world, senyor. Gumiti ulit ang matanda. He was a bubbly old man with a welcoming smile and bright gray eyes bearing wisdom, honed with each passing year. Sa simpleng sweater at loose pants na suot nito, wala sa itsura nito ang pagiging isang hotel magnate. Mula sa foyer, iginiya sila nito papasok sa living room. Ang mga gamit nila ay pinakita nito sa silid na okupahin nila. Sa living room, nadatnan nila ang dalawa pang pareha. Ang mga ito marahil ang kakompetensya ni Mateo sa pagbili ng hotel. They were typical businessmen, rich, cold and stern, despite the smiles. Their partners were typical rich man's wives, classy, snooty, their faces cracked with fake smiles. Sa tingin niya, anumang oras ay ihihimatayin siya sa boredom ng dalawa. Napahawak siya sa braso ni Mateo. How could this couple stand each other? Ni wala siyang maramdamang spark sa pagitan ng magkakapareha. Alas 7 pa ang dinner, and it was only a couple of hours after lunch. Nagpaalam sila kay Don Joaquin na papasok muna sa kwarto. Naninibago ako sa iyo, puna ni Mateo. Kanina, sa katedral nalibot ka, walang pang imik. Paglabas sila. ay nilibot pa nila ang paligid niyon. Tahimik siya habang namamasyal at kahit nang sakay na sila ng taxi papuntang Carrick Mines. Hindi lang ako makapaniwala na kasal na tayo. They both knew that it was meant to be a joke. Pareho silang napatawa. Hindi sila patayo ng asawa at kinulong siya sa mga bisig nito. Wala tayong audience, paalala niya. Batid niyang hahalikan siya nito. So, I want to kiss my wife. Hindi na siya tumutol nang dumampis sa mga labi niya ang bibig nito. Does this mean gusto mo ring i-consummate ang marriage natin? Lakas loob na tanong niya. She needed to know para may handa niya ang sarili. Only if you want to. Anas nito at muling sinakop ang nakaawang niyang bibig. Only if she wanted to? God, she wanted to rip his clothes off that very minute. Nahihibang na nga siya. Mabuti na lamang at may lakas si Mateo na tapusin ang halik bago pa siya tuluyang mawala sa katinoan at gawin ang kanina pa niyang iniisip. You should learn how to resist me, Cassandra, he said, his breathing heavy. She frowned. Why do you want me to resist you? Because I damn can't. I want you, Cassandra, at ayoko magsamantala. We both know that we're only doing this for the show. Hindi ko nakakalimutan. She swallowed hard. Kung gayon, hindi nito gusto ang mga responses niya. He might even think of her as an easy lady. Kung sa bagay, wala nga naman ito maipapangako sakaling may mangyari sa kanila. At least, Mateo had the decency to warn her. I'm sorry. It's just that... Hey! Itinapat niya isang daliri sa bibig nito. It takes two to tango. Gusto mo kong halikan? Gusto ko ring mahalakan. It's a normal physical human behavior. Maybe we got caught up with our fantasies, that we momentarily forgot what's real. Pero ngayon, malinaw sa atin ang lahat. Wala naman nagiging problema. Sa halip na maapis, ay lalo pang lumalim ang kunot sa noon nito. From now on, no more intimate gestures unless needed. Deal? Aniya, na inilahad pa ang isang kamay. Mateo grasped it firmly. Naramdaman niya ang bahagyang pisil nito, and her heart hammered wildly. Wish niya lamang, mapangatawanan niya ang sinabi. Deal! Labas sa ilong ni Mateo ang kanyang sagot. His heart revolted against the idea of not kissing her when he wanted to. Pero sa kanya naman nagsimula, umayon lamang ito. It would be for her own good. Katwiran niya sa sarili. They were just pretending. Tama lamang na ingatan niya ito. Lalaki siya. Ano man ang mangyari, walang mawawala sa kanya. Pero si Cassandra, hindi lamang pagkababae nito ang makakompromise. Baka buong buhay pa nito. Yup, he would have to keep his distance from her when no one was watching, even if it was killing him slowly. Matutulog lamang ako sandali. Anito. She laid on the bed and pulled the pillow. Tumalim ang tingin niya sa unan. Nainggit siya. It should be him. Gusto rin niyang umidlip sa tabi nito. Keep your distance, Mateo, he reminded himself. Sige, umidlip ka na muna. Gigisingin na lamang kita kapag malapit ng mag-dinner. Cassandra smiled and closed her eyes. The temptation of feeling her luscious lips again overwhelmed him. Instead, he smoothed a hand over her head and caressed her cheek. His contented sigh brought a delightful shiver down his spine. Paglabas ng silid nila, hinanap niya kaagad si Don Joaquin. He found him chatting with Evan and John, ang dalawa pang prospective buyers ng property nito. Binati niya ang dalawang lalaki. They were both American businessmen. Sa buong pagtataka niya, ang takbo ng usapan ay hindi tungkol sa hotel, kundi ukol sa buhay mag-asawa ng dalawa. Sumasagot naman ng mga ito sa mga tanong na matanda, but they sounded uninterested and bored. Hindi yun nakaligtas sa keen observation ni Don Joaquin. How about you, Mateo? Where did you meet your wife? At the airport. Wala sa sarili siyang napangiti sa alaala. A few years ago. Dagdag niya, sakaling magtanong pa ito. It was a whirlwind romance, really. We went out for a few days and then we decided to get married. That quick? Evan commented. Sinamahan pa nito ng pagngisi. How long have you been married? 3 years. He weaved a convincing love story and reminded himself to tell Cassandra about it. Hindi makapaniwala ang dalawang lalaking kaharap niya. It's unbelievable. You don't fall in love within the span of a few days. Mateo did. Si Don Joaquin na nagsalita. You know, gentlemen, it is true that love should be nurtured. It should grow with time. But there are instances, rare instances, when the moment you laid your eyes on someone, you are certain that destiny had paired you up and that you are meant to spend the rest of your lives with that person. The moment I met my wife, my utmost desire was to make her mine, completely in every sense. We got married after a week and not a minute passed by, in all our years together, that I did not love her more than I did when we first met. Sumulyap sa kanyang matanda. Alam niyang 5 taon na rin itong byudo, and yet, he could still see his love, his devotion to his late wife. Sometimes, gentlemen, you just know. Sandaling naghari ang katahimikan, and then, Evan chuckled. This is ridiculous. Sinigundahan ni John ang sinabi nito. Nanatiling magiliw ang mukha ni Don Joaquin. The two guys amused him. Yun ang nabasa niya sa mga mata nito. Naramdaman ng matanda na nakatitig siya. Bumaling to sa kanya at mainit ng umiti. Well, it was a pleasure sharing this time with you. I shall leave you with your business for a while. I will meet you again at dinner. And after that, we will discuss the sale of my property. Tumayo rin sila nang tumayo ang Don. Nang mawala ito sa paningin nila, nagkanya-kanya na rin ang dalawang kasama niya. He was left alone with nothing to do. Should he check on Cassandra? Wala pang 1 oras ang itinulog nito. Nakakahiya namang gisingin niya kaagad. Maybe, he should take a tour around the house. Yun nga ang kanyang ginawa. Lumabas siya ng bahay at inikot ang paligid. Sa likuran ay nakita niya ang isang hindi kalakihang man-made lake. May isang paarkong tulay na nagdurugtong sa kilalagyan niya at sa isang lake house. The lake house was an open gazebo, surrounded by wildflowers and patches of ornamental grass. Gumagapang sa mga poso nito ang namumulaklak na vines at sumakop na rin sa pinakabubong. Sa loob ay isang pabilog na mesa na may katernong 2 silya na nakafix na sa sahig. Yari sa marmol ang mga iyon. Mateo could not contain his joy. Cassandra would definitely love this place. It was so solemn, romantic. Pumasok siyang muli sa loob ng bahay at pinuntahan ng dalaga sa silid nila. The opulent dinner made up for the awkward atmosphere in the dining room. Hindi alam ni Cassandra kung anong tumatakbo sa isip ng 2 babaeng kasalo nila. Matanda sa kanya mga ito, but they still looked very sexy and pretty in their own way. At mukhang interesadong dalawa kay Mateo. Panay ang tingin ng mga ito sa asawa niya, and not once did she notice them, cast seductive glances at him. Hindi niya iyon gusto. What's wrong? Bulong ni Mateo. Napasulap siya sa mga mata nito. Wala, medyo busog na kasi ako. Napatingin to sa plato niya. Is there still room for dessert? He drawled. Napahagikik siya at hindi na kontrol ang sarili. Hinaplos niya ang pisngi nito. I think I could squeeze in a bite or two. She giggled. He laughed quietly. Binalik nito ang pansin sa mga kasalo. The 2 women were shooting daggers at her when she glanced at them. Mukhang type ka ng dalawa, aniya. Dinala siya ni Mateo sa lake house pagkatapos ng dinner. She could not contain her happiness. The small spot was romantic. Perfect. Bakit? Nagsiselos ka? Ano magagawa ko kung mas magandang lalaki ako kaysa sa mga asawa nila? Natatawang hinampas ko ito sa dibdib. He was grinning like a schoolboy at walang halong pagkukunwari ang katuwa ang pinapakita nito. She stood up and walked near the edge. Tumayo rin ito at huminto sa likuran niya. Hindi na siya nagulat nang pumatong sa balakang niya ang 2 kamay nito. His hands glided, spanning the small curve of her waist to the fullness of her hips. Napapikit siya. The scorching heat of his skin seized her. The subtle scent of flowers with a touch of masculinity captivated her. She loved the smell of his perfume. Mateo pulled her, and she rested her back against his chest. Tuluyan ang pumaikot sa bewang niya ang mga braso nito. His head dropped and kissed the curve between her neck and shoulder. Ipinaling niya ang ulo, giving him more access to her skin. Her mind screamed continuous warnings. Walang dapat intimacy kapag wala silang audience. Yun ang usapan nila kanina lang. So why was he kissing her? And why was she allowing him? Because it felt wonderful and tremendously satisfying. She caught her breath when one of his hands slid between her chest, upward, closing in on her neck. His finger touched the pulse at the base of her throat, and then he held her cheek and turned her head toward him. His breath hovered above her face, teasing her. Blue-green eyes scanned her features, like searing laser lights burning a trail on her skin. Namula ang buong mukha niya. "We shouldn't be doing this," hirap niyang sabi. Kundi na lamang at huhulagpas na ang self-control niya. Mateo seemed to have already lost it. Somebody might be watching. His thumb traced her lower lip. Napigil niyang hininga. "You are so beautiful." The low, soft tone of his voice finally destroyed her resistance. To hell with her deal. This was her fairy tale and Mateo was her prince. Maaring hindi totoo ang relasyon nila, but the attraction was real. She was on an adventure. Adventures require risk. That moment, she would risk everything just for a kiss. Bahala na. Tuluyan na siyang humarap sa binata. Hinawakan niya ang mukha nito at mariing pinaglapat ang kanilang mga labi. "I will no longer sell the hotel," Don Joaquin said casually. Sabay-sabay silang bumulalas ng pagtataka. Nasa loob sila ng den at pinag-uusapan na tungkol sa property nito. Ang akala niya, isang bidding process ang mangyayari. He was prepared to outbid his opponents para lamang mapa sa kanya ang hotel. "Calm down, gentleman. I have no intention of selling my property. Instead, I am going to give it away." Umawang ang bibig niya. What was the old man up to? "I don't understand, senyor. Whom will you give it to?" "I will give it to any one of you who are most deserving to have it." Nagkatingin silang tatlong kausap nito. Deserving ang ginamit nitong salita, hindi capable. Paano nito pipiliin kung sino ang deserving sa kanilang tatlo? "I would like to give you a test." They waited apprehensively. "I have rented 3 modest farmhouses." On his cue, binigyan sila ng tigi-isang mapa ng assistant nito. "The spot encircled on your respective map is where you will go should you decide to accept the challenge." Sa kanyang mapa ay nakabilog ang isang lugar, somewhere in the Dingle Peninsula. If you could survive there for 5 days without any modern means of comfort and living? Wait, you want us to live like primitives in your farmhouses? Not primitives. There will be water and electricity, and all the necessary amenities. And there will be plenty of food. But you have to fend yourselves. You are to live for 5 days as ordinary people. They were all open-mouthed. The old man continued. "If you are into the challenge, my assistant will have to seize all of your gadgets, as well as those of your wives, including your credit cards. You are allowed only to bring your clothes. I will provide each one of you transportation and cash enough for 5 days. I have assigned each of you a personal safety deposit box in which to store your possessions. Have no qualms, gentlemen. Your things will be properly secured until your return." Someone made a humorless laugh. Nakasimangot ang katabi niyang si John. Siya ay kunot din ang noo. Tama si Trevor. The old man was probably suffering from the early stages of dementia. "Of course, you have the option to not accept my challenge and walk away. And lose my chance at acquiring a profitable property for free? No way!" Determinadong sabi ni Mateo sa sarili. "I will be flying back to Spain tomorrow. I expect to meet you here again after 5 days. What if one of us cheats? How will you know?" "Believe me, Evan, I will know." That was another puzzle he could not figure out. "So, who is with me?" He raised his hand almost instantly, despite his confusion. Sumunod din ang dalawang kasama niya. Don Joaquin smiled smugly. Whatever game he was playing, he was clearly enjoying every bit of it. Nagbabasa ng libro si Cassandra sa library. Aksidente lamang siya nakarating doon habang naglilibot sa loob ng bahay. She tried to wait for Mateo at the lake house, pero dumidilim na at ayaw niyang tumigil doon ng mag-isa. Sa halip na magkulong sa kwarto, naglibot na lamang siya sa loob ng mga bahay. Alam niyang nagaganap ang meeting sa den. She steered away from the room and found the library instead. "Cassandra?" Muntik pa siyang mapatayo sa gulat. Nilingon niya ang nakangiting matanda, nakakapasok lamang sa pinto. She was so engrossed with the historical romance she was reading na hindi niya namalayang pumasok ito. I'm sorry to startle you. No. I mean, it's okay. I'm sorry I took one of your books. Nonsense! Mikasa Sukasa. You can stay here and read as many books as you can. Oh, that is very generous of you. His gaze dropped to the Jane Austen classic she was reading. You like Mr. Darcy? Like him? No, I love him. Excited na sagot niya. He is just so romantic. You know, I have seen the film but I haven't read the book. She caressed the old hardbound cover as if it was a precious treasure. Don Joaquin made a short laugh. Take it, Cassandra. It's yours. You don't mean this is a first edition copy? Mas mahal yun kaysa sa reprint. And I'm sure that my little treasure will rest on good hands. His smile was warm and fatherly. Consider it as a gift, Cassandra. Take it. She was too overwhelmed, too grateful to even speak. She nodded her head and smiled. Nagpaalam siya sa matanda na babalik na sa kanyang silid. Nasa loob ng banyo si Mateo nang pumasok siya. Saan ka nanggaling? Tanong nito pagkalabas. Nakapag-shower na ito at nakasuot lamang ng pajama bottom. She could not control herself from gazing at his perfectly toned pecs and abs, and the trail of fine hair dusted across his chest, ending just below his belly button. His muscles were well defined but not bulky. Her mouth went dry. Cassandra, tawag nito. Pinamulahan siya ng mukha na makita ang nanunuksong ngiti nito. Saan ka ika ko galing? Sa library. Lumapit ito at sinulyapan ng hawak niyang libro. Iniyuko niya ang ulo na isang pagkakamali dahil nakaupo siya sa gilid ng kama at nakatayo ito sa harapan niya. Her gaze went straight to the tempting bulge below his waist. Pride and Prejudice. Mahilig ka pala sa historical romances. Napalunok siya. Oo. Her voice croaked. Lihim niyang namura ang sarili. Mabuti na lamang at naisipan ni Mateo na umalis sa harapan niya. She exhaled sharply. Hindi ka maniniwala sa pinag-usapan namin sa meeting. Don Joaquin is no longer selling his property. Wala sa tono nito ang pagkainis. Napasulyap siya rito. His face was a mask of confusion and amusement. Ibig sabihin, sayang lamang pupunta natin dito? Umiling ito. No, Cassandra. As he said, he is no longer selling it, but he is giving it away for free. What? Pero kailangan muna naming dumaan sa isang challenge. What? Natawa si Mateo sa hindi nagbabagong reaksyon niya. Anong challenge ang binigay niya? Tsaka bakit parang ang weird naman? Nagkibit balikat ito. Hindi ko nga rin alam kung anong pumasok sa isip ng matandang yun. But I wanted that property so much, I accepted the challenge. Anyway, hindi naman yun masyadong mahirap. He told her about the 5-day stay at an old farmhouse somewhere in the Dingle Peninsula. Sinabi rin itong kailangan nilang mamuhay doon ng simple na wala ang kinasayanan yun lang karangyaan. Na sila mismo mag-aasikaso sa kanilang sarili. That's not bad. At marunong ka magluto. I think we will survive kung 5 araw lang. We might even like anang dalaga. At totoo yon sa puso niya. Kung minsan nakakasawa ring palagi may taong handang sumunod sa lahat ng utos niya. That she never needed to move a muscle para makuha ang gusto niya. It would be a breath of fresh air just to be free, to be independent. At dahil nagpapanggap silang mag-asawa, para silang maglalaro ng bahay-bahayan. Hindi pa man, ay nasasabik na siya. Mateo watched as Cassandra's face lit up in enthusiasm. No doubt, nasa dreamland na naman ang diwa nito. Kung nakikita lamang niya ang sarili, mapapansin niya ang ngiti sa kanyang mga labi ay nagre-reflect din sa kanyang mga mata. He had been smiling frequently since he met her. Just the thought of her made him light-hearted. Her nearness electrified every nerve and neurons inside his body. Her smile set the embers of lust ablaze. He had never felt so alive. With Cassandra, he was not Mateo, the billionaire businessman. He was simply Mateo. One reason why he jumped at Don Joaquin's offer was that wala siyang duda na makaka-cope up si Cassandra sa buhay probinsya. At dahil nga mag-asawang drama nila, para silang maglalaro ng bahay-bahayan. He shook his head as he smiled. Ni hindi niya naranasang maglaro noong bata siya. So, when do we leave? The chirpy voice brought him back to her presence. Tomorrow, magpo-provide ng transportation para sa atin si Don Joaquin. At ano naman ang dapat natin gawin kapag nasa dinggal na tayo? Nagkibit siya ng balikat. Anything! Don Joaquin said we will have to fend for ourselves. I guess it's up to us to amuse ourselves too. Humagikik ito. I wonder kung ano tumatakbo sa isip ng dalawang kalaban mo. Well, aniya, na umupo sa tabi ng dalaga. They don't have you, kaya natitiyak kong mananalo ko sa challenge na to. Pabiru siyang siniko nito. Ang yabang mo! Inakbayan niya ito. She tensed for a brief moment, pero kagad ding nag-relax. Nagsasabi lamang ako ng totoo. You are my lucky charm, Cassandra. She looked up and stared into his eyes. Nakaawang ang mga labi nito sa pagkamangha. He was tempted there and then to slit the sand to her nape, angle her head, and ravish her lips with his mouth. With a map and a nap cash on hand, inside the Odisea duster, Mateo and Cassandra set out of their journey to the Dingle Peninsula. Seryosong pinag-aaralan ng babae ang hawak na mapa, pati ng dossier ng property na tutuloyan nila. It was a 2-bedroom farmhouse on the Slea Head route at the foot of Mount Eagle and overlooking Ventry Bay. Hindi naman sila maliligaw dahil madelalyadong ruta papunta roon. Sana naglagay man lang ng pictures, she thought with a pout. Subalit hindi nabawasan ang excitement niya. Her adrenaline was kicking, her pulse throbbing. She felt giddy as a young girl on her first date. Ready ka na? Tanong ni Mateo. Siniguro lamang nitong wala silang nakalimutan bago sumakay ng sasakyan. Gaya ng kasunduan, mga damit lamang at perang ibinigay ni Don Joaquin ang dala nila. Plus, the DSLR camera na bitbit niya. 4 na oras ang biyahe natin. Baka mainip ka. Nagbibiro ka ba? I'm so excited. I wouldn't want to miss anything. Putol nito. Nakangiti ito ng sulyapan niya at kumindat pa na magtama ang mga mata nila. Suddenly shy, she threw her gaze outside the window as he maneuvered the car out of the busy streets of Dublin and onto M7. Nag-stop over sila sa Port Louis para magmerienda at para na rin bisitahin ang Rock of Dunamis, isa sa mga pamosong ruins sa Ireland. Umikot ang mga mata ni Mateo nang isa-isahin niyang itinerary nila para sa araw na iyon. Na-research na niya kung ano-anong tourist attractions ang meron sa bawat syudad at villages na madadaanan nila. Kung masusunod iyon, na talagang sisiguraduhin niya, aabot sila ng hapon bago marating ang farmhouse. To her surprise and delight, hindi nagreklamo ang kasama niya. Nakatayo si Mateo sa isang bahagi ng ruins. Tinatanaw ang scenery sa ibaba ng burol. A faint smile curved his lips. Half of his face was shadowed by a wall. He looked satisfied, happy. Hindi isang professional photographer si Cassandra, pero alam niyang isa ito sa mga instances when she should capture the moment in film. Without him knowing, tinutok niyang camera sa mukha nito. He turned when he heard a click. Siguraduhin mo lang na maganda ang kuha ko dyan, he warned with a lazy grin. Lumapit siya at tinampian ng mababaw na halik ang bibig nito. It was an unconscious gesture na pareho nilang kinagulat, especially after the long hours spent last night controlling the undeniable urge to get physical. Give me the camera, utos ito. Nagtataka man ay binigay rin niya iyon. May mga binago ito sa settings. Pagkatapos, pinatong nito iyon sa isang flat na bato. Hinila siya ng binata. And as she smiled and waited for the click, bigla na itong hinawakan ng mukha niya. Kasabay ng click ng camera ay ang paglapat ng mga labi nito sa kanya. A few minutes later, feeling a little light-headed from the languid kiss they shared, sakay na silang muli ng kotse ni Mateo with a smug grin and she with a deep flush on her cheeks. Dinaanan nila ang Limerick City at saniling sumilip sa St. John's Cathedral. Mula sa syudad, pinagpatuloy nila ang biyahe. The hustle and bustle replaced by the lush countryside setting of the picturesque Adare village. Humingi sila ng direksyon patungo sa Desmond Castle. Makailang ulit silang huminto para makiusap sa ilang natives na kunan sila ng picture sa tabi ng isa sa mga thatch houses na naglinya sa gilid ng daan. Puno na yung memory card mo bago pa tayo makarating sa pupuntahan natin. Biro ni Mateo. Malaki yung memory card capacity nito, no? At saka may dala naman akong reserba. Nailing na lamang ang katabi niya. They went on, had lunch at a cozy dinner at Charlie. They drove the quiet suburbs of Venite para makita ang monument ni Sir Brendan, the navigator. Sunod nilang pinuntahan ang Benerville Windmill at ang Caherconny Promontory Fort. Mateo watched in fascination as Cassandra took pictures of the majestic Caherconny Mountain. Hindi na nila kakayaning akitin ang pinakatuktok para marating ang remains ng isang legendary port. But a few minutes stranded on a deserted road with a vivacious raven-haired female was the next big thing to reaching a mountain summit. Hindi siya makapaniwala nang sabihin nitong mamamasyal muna sila bago dumiretso sa farmhouse. Talagang sinusulit ito ang bakasyon and he was not one to complain. Kahit pagod, iba pa rin ang kasiyang nararamdaman niya sa bawat ngiti, bawat singhap at bawat ningning ng mga mata ni Cassandra. I wish we could climb, sabi nito. Inakbayan niya ang dalaga at kapwa nila tinangala ang tuktok ng bundok. Some other time, sweetheart, aniya. Her head spun. A frown creased her temple at his use of the endearment. Umawang ang bibig nito sa aktong may gustong sabihin. Naghintay siya pero wala siyang narinig. His gaze strayed down to her partly open mouth. She was breathing raggedly and so was he, partly from exhaustion, more from the intensity of desire consuming their bodies. At hindi nakatulong ang tahimik na environment para pahupain ang init na unti-unting tumutupok sa kanila. Cassandra cleared her throat nervously at bago pa maulit ang nangyari sa Porta Luis, inakay na niya ito pabalik ng sasakyan. Mula sa Charlie, dumiretso na sila sa farmhouse ni Don Joaquin. Sa Kilvicadonig, isang village sa 10 kilometro ang layo mula sa Dingletown. Oh my God! Cassandra exclaimed. The single detached farmhouse was seated on an elevated land overlooking Ventre Bay. Sa likod ay ang Mount Eagle. Mateo, I could stay here forever. Nilibot ito ang mga mata. Sa expanse ng lupang nalalatagan ng berdeng damo. May mangilan-ngilang tupa na nanginginain sa malapit, kasama ng mga baka na malay nakapaglalakad sa malawak na lupa. 5 days, and he had a feeling that it wouldn't be enough. Pumasok muna tayo sa loob. Lumalamig na ang hangin. A fine mist was starting to form at the peak. Mateo switched on the lights. Bumaha ng liwanag sa buong living room. The house was minimally furnished but cozy. Isang hearth ang nasa far side ng living room, katabi ng isang whisker basket na puno ng firewood. The air was beginning to get chilly. Lumapit siya sa dapugan at gumawa ng apoy. Minutes later, the chillness inside the room disappeared. Impressive. Biro ni Cassandra. Nagkibit balikat lamang siya. Sunod nilang pinuntahan ang kusina. At gaya ng pinangako ni Don Joaquin, puno ng supplies ang freezer, kahit ang cupboard. They have more than enough food to last them for 5 days. Sinubukan ni Cassandra na buksan ang gripo at natuwa na isahod ang isang kamay sa tubig. The water was lukewarm. This is just wonderful, Mateo. This whole place is heaven on earth. We've got everything we need. Don Joaquin made sure of that. Gusto mong maglakad-lakad tayo mamaya? Let's find a place to dine. Umiling ito. Not tonight. Ipagluluto na lamang kita ng dinner. Umarko ang isang kilay niya. Are you sure? Can you really cook? Bakit di mo na lamang hintayin na makapagluto ako? And then, judge for yourself. You little faith. Laughter reverberated inside his throat. Sige nga, impress me. Who knows? Baka kapag nagustuhan ko ang luto mo, I might hire you as my personal cook. Lumukot ang mukha nito. Wala siyang pakialam kung mapikon man ito. He had a million ways in his mind right now to console her if that would happen. Let's check the bedrooms. Are we sharing a room? Do you want to? Amo niya. Secretly, he was hoping she would say yes. Not this time, I think. Anito. Hindi na lamang niya pinahalata sa dalaga ang pagkadismaya. In those few hours I spent with her, nakalimutan niya nagkukunwari lamang sila. At walang dahilan para umarte dahil wala naman silang audience. But damn, He really wished she was his wife, his real wife. He would love to make love to her in this cozy little house on a warm bed with a fire burning and smoke coming out of the chimney. It would be very magical. Magkatapat lamang ang dalawang kwarto sa itaas. One was painted in light blue. The drapes, bed sheets, and pillow covers are all in deep azure. The second one was painted purple. I hate purple, anas si Cassandra. Namimili ang mga mata nito nang tumitig sa kanya. Doon ako sa blue room. What? Ayoko din ng purple. 5 days lang naman eh. I-imagine mo na lamang na blue din ang kulay ng kwarto mo. Tukso nito. Pinagulong na nito ang maleta papasok sa blue room. I will just take a quick shower. Naiwan siyang nagkakamot ng ulo nang isara nito ang pinto. He stepped inside his room and grimaced at the caller. Cassandra was telling him the truth. She was a great cook. Magaling pa nga sa kusinera niya. Naglaway siya na makita ang chicken roll stuffed with mozzarella sticks and dribbled with some mayo honey sauce. The scrumptious carbonara with buttered toast completed their first home-cooked dinner. Matapos ang hapunan, inaya niyang maglakad-lakad sila. She was wearing a thick cardigan over her t-shirt. Bahagya itong nanginig nang lumabas sila. He was quick to gather her clothes. Giniginaw ka pa? Tanong niya. She smiled and wound her arms around his waist. Hindi na ngayon, she whispered. They strolled downhill and stopped at a safe distance from the cliff. Dinig nilang marahas na pagtama ng tubig sa naglalakihang bato sa ibaba ng cliff. The bay looked calm. Behind them, Mount Eagle was covered with a blanket of white mist. Bakit gusto mong makuha ang hotel na iyon, Mateo? I'm sure maraming ibang magagandang hotel na pwede mong bilhin at pagkakitaan. Hindi mo na kailangan magtiis sa isang weird na challenge katulad nito. Kung hindi kita nakilala, baka nga bumalik na ako sa Pilipinas at kinalimutan ang interes ko sa hotel na yun. God knows Don Joaquin is one tough old guy to please. But you opened my mind, Cassandra. Hindi sa lahat ng oras perang mahalaga. Sometimes, you just have to make do with what you have for the moment and enjoy life. And believe me, I have never had so much fun in my life until you came, and we have this crazy adventure. Gustong sumabog ng dibdib ni Cassandra sa kaligayahan. May positibo rin pala siyang naging impluwensya sa pananaw ng binata. She was only hoping for a quiet and enjoyable escape. Wala sa hinagap na higit pa roon ang mararanasan niya. She had found a friend. More than a friend kung pagbibigyan niya ang puso. The nagging reality hit her like a bald fist to her gut. Ipinikit niya ang mga mata at pilit na binura ang alalahanin sa kanyang isip. May 4 na araw pa siyang nalalabi para manatili sa fantasy world niya. Nakilala ni Dad si Mommy sa hotel na iyon. My dad was traveling on business. Chambermaid naman si Mommy nang napresyo sa uno. Sabi nila it was love at first sight. Napakasal sila bago matapos ang commitment ni Daddy sa Spain. And each year, siniguro nilang babalikan nilang hotel na iyon para sa anniversary nila. And when they had me, higit pang naging espesyal ang bawat pagbisita namin doon. I remember having to sit at our own corner table every year, overlooking the turquoise sea at one side and the surrounding mountain and green meadows at the other. Kahit ang inuo ko maraming room noon, ay ganun din ang view. Humigpit ang yakap ni Mateo sa kanya. Narinig niyang malalim itong buntong hininga. Nagpatuloy ito. It was my second home, Cassandra. Kapag naroon kami, we were just ordinary people, an ordinary family. After they died, I buried myself in work, just so I won't miss them. When Don Joaquin announced he was ready to sell the hotel, my first thought was, I've got to have it. Natuwa siyang marinig na hindi lamang pala isang business venture ang rason kung bakit interesado ito sa property. May sentimental side din ang binata. There was no need for words. They just stood there, admiring nature's fine masterpiece, share memories as deep as the raw but unspoken passion they had for each other. Pinalipas sila ni Mateo ang sumunod na mga araw sa pamamasyal. They went window shopping at Tingtown, shared a few pints of bombers while listening to Irish music at a local pub. They strolled along the shores of Dingle Bay and had witnessed a traditional Irish wedding that same afternoon. They took a ferry to the Great Blasket Island. Nilibot nila ang abandonadong village na naging tirahan ng ilang pamosong Irish writers. They got acquainted with Fungi the dolphin and visited Galaros Oratory, isang lumang simbahan na yari sa pinagpatong-patong na bato. Sa bawat gabing umuwi sila sa farmhouse, they were both exhausted but happy. The fourth day, they rented bikes and followed Sleehead Drive from Ventry. After an hour of rest, admiring the view from the beach, they agreed to get lost. They ventured off R559 at tinahak ang bawat nakikipotadaang nakikita nila. Mas masarap palang maglibot, lalo't wala silang ideya kung saan lugar sila papadpad. They found themselves barricaded by a herd of cows on a narrow street somewhere in Dunkin. Para silang nagpapatintero as they maneuvered between cattle and cow dungs. Just barely past the barricade, Mateo lost his footing and landed butt first on a fresh lump. Napangiwi siya at hindi napigilang bumunghalit ng tawa. Nakahanap sila ng maliit na pond kung saan nilinis ng binata ang sarili. Inabutan sila ng malakas na ulan habang hinahanap nilang daan pabalik sa farmhouse. It took them 2 hours to finally venture back to R559. By the time they got home, they were soaking wet. "Mauna ka nang mag-shower," sabi ni Mateo. The interior of the house was still warm from the remnants of the fire they had left burning. Pero dahil basa siya, nakadama siya ng ginaw. Pumasok lamang siya sandali sa kanyang silid para kunin ang kanyang roba. Pagkatapos ay dumiretso sa shower. As Mateo worked to start a fire in her heart, he was feeling a different fire consuming him. Memories of Cassandra with her wet shirt plastered alluringly against enticing curves made him crazy with desire. 3 gabi na silang natutulog sa iisang bubong, ngunit sa magkahiwalay na kwarto. And every night, he would find himself in front of her door, fighting every urge to push it open and join her on the bed. He desired her. Hindi niya ikakaila iyon. At sa bawat oras na kasama niya ito, the desire grew deeper, evolving into something he had not felt before. Sa maikling panahon, naging isang vital part ng buhay niya ang dalaga. His pretend wife who could arouse him with just the bat of her sexy eyelashes and the innocent sway of her lips. He was dreading the day when their charade would end. Hindi nakatulong ang malakas na ulan para pahupain ang nagwawalang hormones niya sa katawan. Discarding his muddy shoes, he went up. Ang plano niya ay ang kumuha lamang din ng malinis na tuwalya. Hihintayin niyang matapos si Cassandra at pagkatapos maliligo rin siya. He was a goner nang makita niyang nakaawang ang pinto ng banyo sa dulo ng pasilyo. Hindi niya nagawang pigilan ng sarili na lumapit at sumilip. Just one peek and he was frozen. Cassandra stood naked under the showers. He groaned and Cassandra tensed from where she stood. Bago pa siya makalabas, nakalingon na ito sa gawi niya. Their eyes met. Bumuka ang bibig niya para manghingi ng apology, pero humarang na sa kanyang lalamunan ang mga salita na makita ang emosyong naglalaro sa mga mata nito. There was no fear, just a momentarily shocked followed by nervous anticipation. Ni hindi rin tirangka ng dalaga. Natakpan ang kahubadan mula sa kanya. She must have been under some kind of spell. Sa halip na palabasin siya, iniunat ito ang kamay, beckoning him in silent invitation. Tinanggap niya nakaunat na kamay ni Cassandra and joined her under the shower. His one arm instantly snaked around her waist to her nape, holding her head steady. Walang kinalaman ang maligamgam na tubig na tumama sa kanyang katawan, kasabay ng paglalapat ng kanilang mga labi. "Are we going to consummate the marriage now?" he whispered with the tiniest hint of fear. Gusto niyang sumagot ng oo, pero kalabisan na iyon. He might be burning as hell for her now, but he wanted her to want him too. Want what was happening between them. "Only if you want to," pabulong na sagot niya. In his heart, he was silently praying for her not to push him away, not to deny him of the sweet pleasure that was waiting to happen. Matagal na hindi sumagot ang dalaga. Her hands remained at his hips, her fingernails digging at his skin. I want you," she cried out, and he nearly crushed her mouth with his. "Have you done this before?" Nakuha pa niyang itanong. They were still under the shower, pero kanina pa niya pinipihit ang knob. Cassandra's body was trapped between the tiled wall and his towering frame. his hands all over her. "No," she answered. Bigla siyang napahinto. Tinitigan niya ang dalaga. "Cassandra, look at me." Eyes clouded with passion stared at him. "Ibig mong sabihin, you are a virgin?" Was that a bad thing? Nakabawas ba yun sa kagustuhan ni Mateo na angkinin siya? Bahagyang nanginig ang mga labi niya. Nag-ulap ang mga mata niya sa nagbabantang luha. Hindi niya gustong matapos ang kaya-ayang sandali. Not with the unfamiliar tingle of desire coursing through her body. The sensations he had aroused in her thrilled her beyond anything. He might as well drown her in cold water if he decided to stop now. May pakiramdam siyang mananatili sa kanyang katawan, ang init at likha nito. Unless he do something to satiate the continuously growing need. Tinatanong kita, Cassandra. Should she lie? Pero malalaman din naman ng binata. Yes. Pautal na sagot niya. Mateo stared at her hard, and then his features softened, lips twitching into a lazy grin. Muling bumaba ang mukha nito sa kanya. She opened her mouth to accept his kiss. Bathrooms are not for first-timers. Let me make you comfortable in bed. She squeaked when she scooped her up and brought her to his room. The purple room they both did not like. But when he joined her, all the thoughts about color vanished from her mind. A spectrum of light exploded and danced before her eyes the moment Mateo made her his to the fullest sense. It was a trip to the great beyond and back, a journey worth taking, and quite addictive too. Madaling araw pa lang, ngunit gising na gising niya ang diwa ni Mateo. Every nerve and muscle in his body was aware of the soft, sweet form snuggled so close to him. Last night, they made love twice. Or was it thrice? For an inexperienced virgin, Cassandra was as insatiable as him. May bagay na sumingit sa isip niya. Hindi siya gumamit ng kondom. Maingat siya roon. But with Cassandra, napangiti siya. To hell with condoms. He wanted no barrier between their bodies, not of any sorts. Kung mabubuntis ito, then he would gladly take all the responsibilities. Bakit nga ba hindi pa nila totohanin ang pagiging mag-asawa nila? They were perfect together. He looked at the woman beside him as she slept peacefully, cheek resting over his chest, her head tilted toward his, her delectable mouth partly open. Just by looking at her, he felt his body respond. God, woman! Are you a witch? Magdamag na nilang pinagsawa ang isa't isa, and yet he could not get enough. Cassandra stared and slowly opened her eyes. Maaga pa, matulog ka pa. Anong plano mong gawin mamaya? It was their last day at the farmhouse. Wala sa sariling pinagapang nito ang isang daliri sa kanyang panga. I'd like to... Biglang nanlaki ang mga mata ng dalaga. Titig na titig ito sa kanya. Alam niya kung bakit. He was instantly hard again. He grinned wolfishly. I'd like to stay at home. And? Hinawakan niya ang balakang nito. Cook, eat, sleep, make love? Anas nito. Make love? You mean like this? He kissed her intensely as their bodies found a familiar rhythm, and they were lost inside the labyrinth of passion once more. How was your stay? Tanong ni Don Joaquin kay Cassandra habang nakaupo ito sa may stool sa harap ng kitchen counter. Dumating ang matanda sa farmhouse a little after lunch. Hindi nila ito inaasahan at talagang nagulat sila. I cannot thank you enough, senyor. This has been the most memorable experience of my life. She glanced out to the man chopping firewood. Every calculated move, every play of corded muscles remained her to their erotic interludes. Pinamulahan siya ng mukha. How much do you love him? Bumalik ang nagliliwaliw niyang diwa sa kasalukuyan dahil sa tanong na iyon. Seryosong nakatingin sa kanya ang kausap ng lingunin niya. Excuse me? How much do you love your husband, Mateo? My husband. It felt good to the ears. Sana lamang ay totoo. A wistful smile played across her lips. I don't think I can quantify it. My heart bursts with joy every time I'm with him. And when I see him smile, I never cease to wonder what I did right to deserve him. If love can really be measured, then mine for him would go beyond every scale. Ilang sandaling inalisan niya kung saan galing ang mga salitang iyon. It felt so real for her, each word spoken without an ounce of pretense. She had just voiced out what she had accepted since she married Mateo. She loved him. I have no doubt, Cassandra. I can see it in your eyes. Ngumiti siya sa matanda, mixed emotions playing on her face. Ano kaya magiging reaksyon nito kapag natuklasan na isang palabas lamang ang relasyon nila? Gaano man katotoo mga salitang binitawan niya? Maybe he would never find out. She was with Mateo for the moment. Sa oras na magdesisyon si Don Joaquin, that it would be out of dreamland and back to reality for her. I married my wife when we were both 19. I had used all of my savings to buy that piece of land on top of a small hill, with a full view of the capes of Busto, Video, and Peñas, and the Cantabric Sea. It was our very first property. Don Joaquin stood up and stared outside the window, the one facing the ocean. His gaze went past the vast waters, beyond the clouds, to a time and place that once was. Our home was a hut made out of scraps, and yet we were determined to make something out of it. Imelda was very proud of what little we have accomplished together. He made a deep sigh and then glanced at her. My wife was an exceptional woman, he said proudly. I am sure she was. Hindi nakatiis na komento niya. Ramdam niya ang emosyon nito. Could picture what he saw in his mind. One determined look from those emerald green eyes, and I was reduced to melted butter. They both laughed. God must have favored us. Our buy and sell business flourished, and soon we had enough money to build us a real house. Imelda gave birth to our son there, but we lost him due to heart complications a week later. I'm sorry to hear that, she said softly. No need for pity, my dear. The old man glanced at her. My son's death and the devastating news that she can never bear a child again did not deter our spirits and lessen our love for each other. The hotel was her idea. Imelda loved taking care of people, making them feel at home. She would always serve our guests extra servings of her tortilla española for free. Needless to say, we became rich, had money to expand the business and to travel. But wherever we go, that small hotel would always be that humble hut we called home. We fell in love with Ireland and decided to retire here. But Imelda died even before it happened. Malungkot itong ngumiti. His eyes were misty when he glanced at her. You see, Cassandra, I can't give the hotel to just anyone. It is not about the money. The hotel is more than just a structure, more than a money maker. It was our dream, our home. It was our past, our memories, and our love. You want to give it to someone who understands how important memories are to some people. Tumango ito. Someone who values people and relationships more than anything else. Dagdag nito. Naalala niya si Mateo at ang totoong dahilan kung bakit desidido itong makuha ang hotel. He would fit perfectly in that category. Ngunit ayaw niyang panghimasukan ang desisyon ng matanda. Batid niyang alam nito ang ginagawa. Why this kind of test? What do you intend to accomplish? It is simple, Cassandra. I want to find out who has character. Nangunot ang noo niya kaya nagpatuloy ito. Strip a man of all the comforts money can buy and he becomes what he naturally is as a man. What he is made of, that is an entirely different matter. When you're not blinded by all the worldly possessions, you tend to look at life at a different perspective. Some will loathe the laid-back, boring environment, but a man who looks at the world with his heart, he will embrace the realities. He will find pleasure in all the simplicity. He will know what matters most. How will you know who to pick? By their smiles and the twinkle in their eyes. Namilog ang mga mata niya. Do you have someone in mind already? Of course! I have already decided since that dinner back in Carrick Pines. I just needed further proof. Malakas ang kabog ng dibdib niya. Could he be referring to Mateo? A few hours later, during dinner, Don Joaquin announced the good news. I don't know how to thank you, anas ni Mateo. Nasa labas na sila ng Ninoy Aquino International Airport matapos ang ilang oras na biyahe mula Dublin hanggang Maynila. Halos hindi sila nag-uusap habang sakay ng eroplano. They just held each other, not ready yet to say their goodbyes. Cassandra, I was thinking, Pinigil ng halik ng dalaga ang nais niyang sabihin. He was about to offer her another proposition, this time, a lifetime commitment. Why don't you bring me to your place? Parang ayoko pang umuwi sa amin. The subtle hint made him smile. Tumawag siya ng taxi at nagpahatid sa kanyang bachelor's pad. Hustong nailak niya ang pinto when Cassandra threw herself at him. Mabilis na hubad ang kanilang mga suot. In an instant, he was inside her, satiating his hunger. Nag-iisa na lamang si Mateo nang magising siya kinabukasan. Cassandra left with a note thanking him and telling him how she enjoyed every moment they had spent together. Sinabi rin itong hindi na niya kailangang bayaran para sa kasunduan nila at hindi na niya ito dapat na panghanapin. Beside the note was her wedding ring na ang kapares ay suot pa rin niya. Napamura siya. Padabog siyang tumayo. Hindi malaman kung paano pakikibagayan ang galit at takot na nararamdaman. Sa bawat paglunok, nalalasahan niya ang pait ng pagkawala ni Cassandra. She could not have meant it. After everything they shared, inangat niya ang telepono. May ipapahanap akong tao sa'yo, and I want you to find her before this week ends. Walang ligoy-ligoy na utos niya sa lalaking sumagot sa kabilang linya. 2 weeks, and yet it felt like yesterday when she and Mateo parted. Pinilit lamang niya ang sariling iwan ito. Kaya nga naghintay siya makatulog ang binata bago siya umalis. It tore her heart to pieces when with one last kiss and tears streaming down her eyes, she went out of his door and out of his life. Hindi na ito mawawala pa sa puso niya. She would always feel grateful for the love they have shared. Hindi man nila binibigkas ang mga salita, sapat ng kilos para maniwala siyang higit pa sa pisikal na relasyon ang namagitan sa kanila. Cassandra, nilingon niya ang ama. Nakangiti ito, ngunit malungkot ang mga mata. Tahimik siyang pinagmasdan ito. With her designer wedding dress, she looked splendid, pero hindi siya masaya. It's time, Iha. Mapait siyang napangiti. This is it. Daig pa niyang dadalhin sa little injection chamber. Her knees wobbled and her father had to hold her shoulders to steady her. Cass, I'm okay, Dad. Kinakabahan lang ako. He gave her a pitiful look. Don't do this, sabi nito. Alam niyang seryoso ang kanyang ama. Batid nitong hindi niya mahal si Charles, but it was already too late. God knows kung anong gagawin ng mapapangasawa niya sa matanda kapag umurong siya. Hindi niya maatim na ipahamak ito. Wala sa sariling nakapani ang puson. She prayed with all her heart for a life, Mateo's seed, his child, that would make her hell more bearable. Maaga pa para malaman. Sana lamang dinggin ng Diyos ang hiling niya. We don't want to keep him waiting, she managed with a croak. Pagdating sa simbahan, halos ayaw na niyang bumaba ng kotse. The idea of being married to Charles nauseated to her. Mateo watched from behind one of the church pillars. Nang sabihin sa kanya ng private investigator na ang babaeng hinahanap niya ay engaged na sa ibang lalaki. And to Charles Ocampo of all people. Nakaramdam siya ng galit. He thought Cassandra had betrayed him by not telling the truth. Mabuti na lamang at maasahan si Lance. Kumpleto ito sa impormasyon. At hindi naging mahirap sa kanya na pagtagpi-tagpiin ang lahat. Napilitan lamang si Cassandra na magpakasal kay Charles. Walang kasal na magaganap. Not if I could help it. With hands balled into fist inside his pants pocket, he took a seat. Doon sa hindi siya matatanaw ng dalawang ikakasal. The ceremony started and Mateo is tensed. He looked around. Nasa isang sulok lamang si Dave at si Lance. Handa sakaling mga ilangan siya ng backup. With a nod of his head to signal them, he stood up. Itigil ang kasal. Everyone turned in his direction. Good. Now for the dramatic entrance. You have no right to marry that woman, Charles Ocampo. Cassandra gasped when she saw him. The spark of longing and hope in her eyes made him smile. I've got you, sweetheart. I won't take him take you away from me. It was his silent message to her. Strangely, she understood. Patunay ang luhang naglandas mula sa mga mata nito. You are not invited, Mateo. I can sue you for... Nagngangalit ang mga bagang na umpisa ng groom. I can sue you for a lot more than what you have in mind. Let us try coercion for a start. He cut him off, his voice clear and firm to everyone to hear. Napansin niyang bahagyang napaatras si Charles. Nawalan din ng kulay ang mukha nito. You owe me 20 million, Charles. The same amount you used to blackmail Cassandra's father. Mateo, anong ibig mong sabihin? Bakit magkakilala kayo? Sa unang pagkakataon, nagawang magsalita ng dalaga. Nang tangkain ni Charles na hawakan ng dalaga, bigla itong pumiksi at tinulak ang lalaki. Mateo was beside her in an instant. Nakatayo na rin ang ama nito at maagap na tinabihan ng anak. I met Charles through a common friend. Sa akin galing ang 20 million na niloan niya sa daddy mo. Ang sabi niya sa akin, gagamitin niyang dagdag sa kapital sa negosyo niyang pera. I trusted him. It was a lapse in judgment on my part. Nakalimutan ko na tungkol sa perang iyon until I hired someone to track you down. Nalaman ko tungkol sa engagement ninyo. Kung ganun, wala pa talaga akong utang sa kanya dahil hindi naman nanggaling sa kanyang pera, sabi ni Mr. Lorenzo. Technically, ganoon nga po at hindi lang yun ang ginawa niya. Ang rason kaya hindi kayo makabawi sa pagkalugi ng negosyo ninyo dahil manipulado niya mga kliyente ninyo. I won't be surprised kung malalaman kong kaya nalugi ang business ninyo in the first place ay dahil din sa kanya. He watched as all the colors drained from Charles' once arrogant face. Walang hiya ka. Bago pa siya makakilos, nagawa ng suntukin ni Cassandra ang lalaki. Para yan sa panloloko mo sa daddy ko. She shrieked, pulling the long veil from her hair and throwing it at him. Mateo winced when he saw what she did next. A loud yelp robbed Charles of his breath the moment her knee hit his crotch hard. And that is for torturing me, you bastard! Humihingal na sabi ng dalaga. Hinawakan ni Mateo ang kamay nito. Hindi dahil natatakot siyang masaktan ito ni Charles. At her present rage, she could kill the jerk with another knee. Gusto niyang humagalpak ng tawa. Enough, sweetheart. I'm sure he got your message. Her expression changed from fury to outright relief. Oh, Mateo! Yumakap ito sa kanya. They were mindless of the crowd now. Ang akala ko. She stifled a sob. Kung sinabi mo lang sa akin kaagad, hindi mo na sana naranasang maglakad sa aisle para sa lalaking yun. She grimaced. I'm sorry. He smiled and caressed her cheeks. Hindi ako papayag na ikakasal ka sa iba. You are my wife, remember? Pero, kunwari lang naman yun. It wasn't legal, but it was real for me. Anyway, decidido naman talaga akong pakasalan ka. As in? For real? Namimilog ang mga matang paniniguro nito. Yup. Kung hindi mo ako tinakasan, I would have proposed to you that morning in my pad. Oh! She looked so cute and charming. He gave in to the urge to kiss her, unmindful of the collective gasp from their audience. Mateo, maraming tao. So? He arrogantly said. Hinarap niya ang pari at kinausap. Ngumiti ito at pumayag. Ang mga bisita naman ang hinarap niya. Nagpalakpakan ng mga ito nang sabihin niyang tuloy ang kasal. Only, iba na ang groom. Cassandra looked delightfully around her. Wala na sa paligid si Charles at hindi na niya gustong alamin kung sinong tumutulong dito at paano itong nakaalis. Good riddance to him. She then cast a glance at her father, who gave her the thumbs up nang i-announce si Mateo na silang dalawang ikakasal. Totoo na ang kaligayahan sa mukha nito ngayon, despite not knowing anything about her groom. There would be more than enough time for introductions later. Lastly, she shifted her gaze to her adoring groom. When did you realize that you loved me? Tanong niya. That morning, at Clontarf, when you asked me to marry you. Tumaas ang isang kilay niya. Talaga? He shrugged. Maybe not in Clontarf. It doesn't matter. Hinapit siya nito. You caught me somewhere in Ireland. Hook, line, and sinker. She drawled. Somewhere in Ireland. I like that. Ikinawit niyang dalawang braso sa leeg nito. Ngunit bago pa siya mahalikan ng binata, tumikim ang paring nasa harapan nila. Nagtataka pa silang lumingon dito. The kiss comes after you say I do. Paalala nito. She blushed profusely. Matea's laughter echoed around, followed by the teasing one-liners from the crowd. Pwede ba nating ituloy ang kasal? Nakangiting tanong ng pare. Sabay pa silang tumango. Their wedding could not be more perfect. And months have passed and she gave birth to a beautiful girl at pinangalanan